Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 298 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host for the next couple hours of intense game discussion. Riding shotgun with me today, I have Matt Kyle. What's going on, Matt? How are you, brother?
All right, not much.
How's your week been?
Slow.
It's insane how slow it is right now, people. Holy moly. The crazy part, though, is so much stuff happened this week. We have tons of topics today. I think the most topics we've had in an episode of GameFace in maybe over a year. It's going to be like machine gun fire today. So if you're one of those people who watches GameFace, you're like, oh, Shane and Matt talk too long about certain stuff. That's not going to be a problem today. We have 12 topics to get through in today's episode, and I think all of them are interesting. I think we're going to have a great show. But yeah, holy moly, man. Like, it is so slow. I talked on Good Morning Gaming on the episode that went up this morning about the MPD report that came out, and that's not even in the show today. We're not even including MPDs. But the MPD report came out yesterday. Almost all those games bombed, Matt, that came out in like February and March. And part of it, obviously, is how well Elden Ring did, because it got that 9.7, and it seems like a lot of people had to make a decision, and they're just like, I'm going to go with the 9.7. Even games like Horizon Forbidden West, which we're actually going to talk about on today's show again, even it, like in the second month of sales, it dropped down to the 5th slot. That's not encouraging for the sales of that game, that it had a pretty strong first month, and then the second month is already down to 5th. And it came, what was its release date in February? Was it late February?
What was?
Horizon. Wasn't it like
Horizon was like the 18th.
The 18th, yeah. So it only had 10 days on sale in February, and then all of March. And then all of March's sales, it still only came in at 5th on the sales charts. And obviously, the game's available for PS4, which has 100 and some million install base. That's not encouraging. Why would you think that happened, Matt? Is it all Elden Ring?
Because they're not including digital sales.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the same for all the games on the MPD report. They're all on the same footing.
I don't know if they all are, because I think it depends who. Doesn't some report and some don't?
No, they don't. Like, the MPD reports are generated evenly across all games.
I think Elden Ring certainly dominated, but like, digital sales are becoming more and more of a force, and I wouldn't be surprised if most of them are selling digital. Okay, Vincent says they do include digital, but Tiny Tina doesn't.
So every game but one didn't include digital? That's odd.
Nintendo and 2K do not report digital sales.
Interesting. Okay. So most games are on equal footing, but not all.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Horizon probably isn't, for one thing, isn't coming in that high because it's only on PlayStation. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's a lot of people who are waiting to play it on PS5, and so aren't buying it
because they don't have a PS5 yet.
Yeah,
that's possible.
You know, and these exclusives sometimes are kind of a slow. Maybe there's a contingent of people that are waiting to play it on PC. Who knows?
Yeah, well, they may be waiting a long time for that one.
Like
but you're right. The seed's planted now. Yeah. That if you wait long enough, you can play Sony's first-party games on PC. And they've been pretty good. The ports have been all right. So, in some cases, on equal footing at least with the
Horizon
PlayStation
had to
4
be
version.
Fixed pretty hard, but they did fix it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think we're going to have to wait and see what Sony's, total sales are on that way. If they ever announce it, who knows?
They usually do. Sony's pretty good about reporting sales. Well, when the games do well, you end up getting the numbers. When they don't, you end up having to find out from the developer a lot of times how the game sold, like Days Gone. Sony wasn't very forthright with the sales for that game.
No, I can imagine. Although they did do an anniversary stream for it the other day.
Yeah. So anyway, Elden Ring just dominating. It really crushed a lot of big games that came out. And my contention in today's Good Morning Gaming, if you haven't listened to it yet, and you should when you get up in the morning and you're getting ready for work or whatever, but if you haven't, my contention is that these publishers were idiotic for jamming all these games into February and March, and here we are sitting in April and May with nothing to play. Now, I get part of that was we need to get it out before the end of the quarter, but is it really worth it, Matt, to get a game out at the end of the quarter and have it tank versus waiting an extra month or two.
Well, I wouldn't call any of that tanking.
I mean, if you look at the numbers, Matt, like some of the games in this that were available in February and then came to March ended up getting beat in March by like Madden, which means that there was like 15,000 sales probably.
And I mean, part of it is because I don't think anyone expected Elden Ring to do what it did.
Sure, it caught people off guard
because
somewhat.
like you're talking about selling double what any of the other, certainly early on, what any other From games have ever done. From games are important have been important in the enthusiast realm, but like you never had to plan your release dates around them before. And now I'd say you do. So yeah, I don't know.
Weird, don't you think?
I mean, Horizon's weird that it wouldn't do a little better. But maybe not. I don't know. Like, it's also kind of a weird time where, like, the world was kind of struggling to come back a little bit, and people were going out and doing things, and it's.
I'm out and about a lot more than I was this time last year.
See
that's
how
for
long
sure.
all that lasts.
Yeah, but, things are starting to look a little dicey again.
But I don't know. Like, I don't know why that would have happened.
Yeah,
unless it's just people bought Elden Ring and didn't want to spend another $60 on something else.
Yeah.
Dying Light 2 does seem to have.
It didn't even make it into the chart in the second month, Matt. It did well. It debuted.
I forget that came out.
Right. I'm about to go back to it. It debuted in February 4th, and then in March, not even in the top 20.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to. I guess they're gonna have to hope that they that Dying Light 2 sort of like has the long legs of the first one. Like it hasn't sold badly.
No, it hasn't tanked, so to speak.
But like, I would expect after kind of the support they showed Dying Light 1 and the kind of sales over time that game got, that maybe it would have gained enough recognition and reputation that people would have jumped in on the sequel faster.
Yeah.
But maybe they're prepared for that. I don't know. It sounds like Dying Light 2 did sell a little better than the first one did.
Oh yeah, out of the gate it did for its first month for sure.
I guess it kind of depends how realistic.
I mean, you're right though. Techland's probably sitting there saying, actually,
yeah, not bad.
We're doing better than we did with the first game.
Ahead of where we were.
We're ahead of the curve. Yeah.
Although you do assume that the new one costs more than the first one. But I don't know. Like, I sit there and wonder about a lot of business plans.
Yeah.
Right now,
for sure. There's a lot of things that confuse me.
Why would you buy that? Why would you decide that your next Spider-Man verse movie is going to be El Muerto?
Right.
A character who has appeared in 2 issues of comics.
Yeah.
I guess it's because Bad Bunny wants to do it, and Bad Bunny is super hot right now. I guess you better hope Bad Bunny's still super hot in 2024. Okay.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of they announced that they're finally doing a Robotech movie. I mean, the Robotech movie's been in development hell for over a decade now, but now Sony says we're really doing it with a guy who directed Hawkeye. And I'm like, okay. That seems like a series of bad decisions waiting to happen, but here we are. There's a lot of that going. The internal documents about CNN Plus just came out, where it turned out that they expected CNN Plus to be making $1 billion in revenue by year 4, and instead they are shutting it down after 22 days.
Well, that's because the new owners had told them actually they were going to shut down CNN Plus once the deal went through, and I think CNN was just being bullheaded and was like, well, we worked on this really hard.
Well, they were like, oh, everyone's going to be so excited and subscribe to it in such huge numbers that they're not going to be able to shut it down.
Right.
And then it was like, no one cared.
Yeah. There's a certain level of, and I talked about this in Good Morning Gaming today as well, hubris, where it's a fine line between being really confident in something that you're working on and a product that you're working on and being overconfident.
Oh, yeah.
And making poor decisions because you're overconfident.
Right. Well, and also, I have been in the room when an executive type person who has dedicated a lot of time and effort and convincing to a certain strategy or direction is told by the numbers, by the stats, by the facts, this is not something anyone wants. And they will just double down.
A lot of times they will.
Because the only other option is to say, I've been wrong for 2 years.
Yep. And most execs do not want to do that.
Yeah, not an alpha move, as they say. So then they'll just be like, well, I disagree. And they'll be like, the numbers don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree. Yeah. There are some things.
That's what happens when you have people who are making these decisions are put in place because they have a marketing degree and a connection in the networking meeting, as opposed to they work their way up through the company,
right,
through the production process.
Right. Yeah. They've actually got their hands dirty doing the work. It's true. Let's see. Let's head over to chat before we get started on the episode proper. We are GameFace. We are supported 100% by Patreon. Head to patreon.com/sifted and give us a pledge. We really need the help right now. I say it week after week. I'm not lying. I'm just being honest with you guys. If you've ever thought about helping us and supporting us in any way, now is the time. Again, that's at patreon.com/sifted. Let's see what we got going on here. Barry Lomax, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub. That's awesome. Corey Film, thank you for Twitch Prime. I think these were from last week. Giant Pile, Mr. 60, Texture Glitch, and Wampler 13. If not, thank you for Twitch Prime.
Yeah, everyone's saying hello after those. So.
Yeah. Let's see. McWomble, thank you for Twitch Prime. McWomble says, Shane's in a shirt. Is it a special occasion? I guess I'm wearing a button-up shirt today instead of a t-shirt. It makes a difference. Was Shane nude last week? No. That would have definitely been a thing if that had been the case. FF8 Master C, thank you for Twitch Prime. Vincent says Dying Light 2 has passed 5 million total. Yeah, I saw it did like 4+ million in its first month.
Yeah, and that's 2K, so it wouldn't include digital.
And this is weird. Vincent says Dying Light 2 didn't include digital last month. Why would it pick and choose what months it chooses to include digital?
I don't know. Why wouldn't you report digital?
I don't know. That's really weird.
Why would you underreport your sales?
I don't know. Very weird.
I mean, Nintendo's going to Nintendo, but why would 2K do it?
Yeah, well, usually you just don't report
yeah.
instead of underreporting. Aussie Brit 2000, thank you for Twitch Prime. 44 months, man. Thank you very much. That makes a big difference for us. Thank you for sticking with it.
That is Warner. So why is Warner not reporting it?
Yeah, bizarre. GameFace needs to be on OnlyFans. Make mad money there, guys. I don't think that would work out well for us at all, unfortunately. But it does seem to work for a lot of people, Matt. Mm-hmm. OnlyFans. Typically, it seems like it's females that it works well for, but
younger.
Yeah,
is probably the key there.
Yep. Not our wheelhouse, I would say. So anyway, I think we're ready to get on with the show. Again, we have 12 topics today. So this show is going to move a little quicker than you guys are probably used to. You have to stay on your toes a little bit on chat. We will kind of go to you guys after every topic to see if you guys have something to say about what Matt and I said about a topic. So we aren't going to exclude you guys out of the show because we have so much to get to. But you do have to pay a little more attention and kind of get your questions in when Matt and I are wrapping up a topic so we can get you guys into the show. And with that, let's get going. We're going to talk first about God of War Ragnarok. This week, Matt, was the 4-year anniversary of God of War, the reboot from 2018. Sony Santa Monica, the studio behind the game, and the sequel Ragnarok went on Twitter and posted a message to fans. And the message to fans really wasn't much of a message at all. Corey talked about it. Oddly enough, it was 420. So he made a point several times to say, have a great 420. And then he talked about how they're proud of God of War from 2018 and, you know, how it was so eye-opening when they finally released it and all the work that they had done. Everyone else was able to check it out. And then he really said very little about God of War Ragnarok. He said, there's so much that we're working on here, but it's not ready to be shown. And a lot of people, myself included, were like, whoa, okay. We're at worst case scenario 8 months out from release at this point. Mm-hmm. That's worst case scenario. And there's nothing that you can show right now.
Because they're waiting for their showcase thing in May.
Do you think that's why?
Yeah. Like if they don't do their usual like May blowout of the big game of the year thing that they always do or have done the last several years, then I'll be worried about God of War. But I'm not.
Well, fans freaked out. The internet freaked out. Twitter,
what's new?
Twitter freaked out. And it was, to me, a little bit of a red flag. And one of their developers went into one of the threads and said, Ragnarok is coming in 2022. Mm-hmm. And he misspelled Ragnarok, which was a little odd for someone who spends every waking moment of their lives working on the game. But one of their developers did go on and say, it's coming this year. Is there nothing to worry about, Matt?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, if they don't show anything in May, then I'll be a little concerned. But again, like I said, that board in Portugal rated it, already threw it through a rating system, which usually means 5 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Like So I think it'll be October.
Do you think Cory Barlog just used a poor choice of words there?
No, I think he used a pretty rational choice of words, and the internet doesn't know how to fucking read things properly. Like
he said there's nothing ready to show you.
Yeah,
guys.
because they're preparing everything for a big showing in a month. Like there's nothing ready to show you because the thing we want to show you is scheduled to be shown in May.
Well, do you think it would have been better for him to say because we have a big show coming up in the next month or two?
Maybe, but like that's probably not his call.
Yeah.
That probably is something you'd have to clear with marketing, and this may have just been something to decide, oh, let's just send something out because marketing doesn't want to talk about anything yet. But like we want to talk to people because it's the anniversary and people want to know, and people have been starting to be like, hey, where's God of War? I haven't heard anything about God of War. Because that has definitely been a sentiment I've seen in the last few weeks. Like, where's God of War?
And then this happened on top of it. Yeah.
So, I think it's just people freaking out about nothing. Like I'll worry about it if they don't show anything next month.
Yeah. It is a little peculiar that we're so close to its release, assuming that it does come out this year, and all we have so far is like a 3-minute trailer. Because it doesn't usually pull the Bethesda stuff, Sony. It doesn't usually like put something out and then we wait years before we get something else.
No, but at the same time, considering this game and its reputation, I can understand why you'd want to like really be careful with what you're showing and only show stuff that's really close to done. And it's I'm sure there's an insane amount of polish on that 3 minutes they've shown.
No, I mean we're seeing it right now. So
I think very carefully controlling this is a good idea. And it's not like people are gonna be like, well, you didn't show me enough footage in 2021, so I'm not buying this game. Like,
I don't think there's any worries about people not buying the game.
There's the ball is entirely in their court on this, and they can show as much or as little of this game as they want. And it seems like they're going to opt for as little at this point. But I'm sure I imagine we'll get the big May blowout thing, and we'll get a big gameplay demo like Horizon and Last of Us got. And we'll get probably another trailer and some behind-the-scenes-y things as we get later in the summer. Probably maybe something at Gamescom or a little snippet of something at Gamescom, and then it'll come out in October.
Yeah,
at Gamescom, actually, I would imagine they probably drop the
developer
walkthrough and stuff. And like May, I bet we'll get like the pre-orders will go up for the collector's edition or whatever statue they're trying to give away for this one. I actually expect the collector's edition on this one to be obscene. Like I think it's gonna be like a $200 like huge statue, like old, because you can get away with it with this one. Like people buy that, or like a life-size replica of the axe or something,
made out of plastic or rubber, hopefully.
Yeah.
To me, it just feels like the messaging. They just kind of screwed up the messaging here. They could have been much more clear and kept fans from losing their crap But
I guess, but like people don't always think about, if I read that, if Corey had shown me that message ahead of time and I'd have been like, yeah, people are going to read that as we're working on, as like we're not remotely done with the game, as opposed to like we are working on a big thing
reveal.
We're going to show you, and it's not ready to show you yet because it's not scheduled to be shown until like May 20th or something. But in his head, working on doesn't mean, oh my God, we're horribly behind schedule and nothing will ever come out. It means we're working on this right now because that's what they're doing. Like it's basically he's not taking into account how panicky and irrational people online are. So.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, do you think there's any danger of this game losing a little bit of its luster because it's taken so long? I mean, at the same time, it's not like we've had a ton of games that are exclusive to PS5 that are going to make it look bad. I mean, here we are, so far into this life cycle, we're still having games that straddle both generations. Do you think there's any danger of this game kind of looking behind the curve a little bit technically?
Zero.
Yeah.
Both by what we're seeing and because nobody's going to care.
No.
Like, this is one of the only games that people I know who don't know anything about games or game news, who just play games very, very casually. This is the one game that they all ask me, are they doing another one of those even now?
Yeah.
And so I say, yeah, they're probably this year. And they're like, oh, wow. And like, and one of the ones who don't have one already, almost like, oh, I got to find a PS5 before that.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I mean, people are willing to make a $500 purchase. That is not the easiest $500 purchase to make, even if you have $500 to prepare to play this game, even the people that aren't like super gamer people. So yeah, I think they're fine. Like this, it's not going to be an issue. And look, like most people do not have the eye for what constitutes next gen or last gen anything. And the line is very blurry as it is. For God's sake, No Man's Sky looks really good now on PS5.
Yeah, it does.
So, like, yeah, it's not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
You know, man, it's 4 years old, but the original game still looks great anyway.
It does.
Like,
yeah.
Especially if you put the 60 frames patch on the PS5. Like, it looks like it could have come out last year. Like,
yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, Sony Santa Monica is ahead of the curve in the way Insomniac is. You know, it's just it's hard to judge their stuff by the standards of the day.
Yeah. The reason I brought it up is because I have gone back, and we're going to talk about it next. I have gone back and I've been trying to finish Horizon Forbidden West. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it is a little bit in that class at this point. Like where it I don't know, it could look better, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, everything could look better.
Yeah, I mean, but sure, everything can always look better. But I'm saying it could look better if it were just a PS5 game, that they had just focused 100% on PS5.
I don't know about that.
You think that's what we're going to get at open world games on PS5? That's the kind of the limit?
I mean, I don't think it's the limit, but it's like probably the limit right now.
Yeah. That's a little disappointing to me, honestly.
I mean, I think Horizon looks amazing.
So but here's the thing, Matt. It looks amazing on PS4. Like it literally, like there's very little. It's probably the best looking PS4 game. Mm-hmm. And there's very little difference between the PS4 and the PS5 versions of that game.
Well, I mean, it runs way better on PS5.
Sure.
That's the main. That's
the frame
main
rate's
thing.
Solid. Yeah.
And some people would say that's more important.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would, but like
for that game, maybe not.
I don't really care. I guess I would say, like, you know, it looks great. It looks better than the last one. It looks better than most of the other things I play. You know, like I don't know if it outdoes Ghost of Tsushima for me. I mean, I think technically it's better than Ghost of Tsushima, but I think Ghost of Tsushima, in terms of art direction and color usage, is more impressive.
Yep,
like,
agreed.
Even though it's probably not technically as good.
Yeah, it's probably not pushing as many polygons.
No, I don't think the draw distance isn't. Yeah, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you're certainly not getting the vistas that Horizon has.
Yeah.
But I stopped and went whoa more often in Tsushima.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Horizon is more like that's really, I really like this area, and here's the vistas and the rises and the cliff stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff in there that I know like you couldn't have done in the first one.
Yeah.
And part of that is not the power of the PS5. Part of that is how much better they are working with that engine, and some of that might have been help from Kojima's team on Death Stranding, because Death Stranding also did a lot to kind of expand the horizon, no pun intended, on that engine.
For sure.
And what they did there, the facial text way better. Like that's the stuff that like matters the most to me, is like making these people look like real people who are really talking to each other. Like that's and that's sort of and maybe something that should have been there in the first place in the first game, but like, hey, I'll take it. There is a huge jump in the quality of the characters and the character design in this one. And if they can get that to work on PS4, great. Like you're basically just turning down sliders and hoping nobody notices. And for the most part, I think you don't. Mm-hmm. But a lot of ultra versus medium settings can be like that even on PC games. It's not. I just kind of struggle to see what people are talking about when they say like, oh, this could have been. What if it was only on PS5? Like, would God of War have been substantially different if it was only on PS5? I don't really think so. I guess like.
Well, here's God of War 2018. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I struggle to see much of an upgrade for Ragnarok.
There's a lot more particle effects going on. There's more things on screen.
I mean, that could just be this scene, though.
The texture. I mean, I've played God of War, though. I know how many people can get on screen, and they're already showing way more activity in a fight in that 3-minute footage. I think the textures on the walls and stuff are much better. I mean, some of that's just 4 years later, you're going to learn how to do more. It's just how the curve goes.
Yeah.
But also like there is definitely an if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing. And in terms of God of War, I am much more interested in finding out what happens rather than seeing a technological like breakthrough.
I'll be honest with you. Greedily, I would prefer the God of War the PS5 only game. I mean, we're like 2 years into the PS5. Like,
I would be more sympathetic to that viewpoint if it was more readily able to buy a PS5.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy what we're dealing with.
Otherwise, you're kind of just locking people out.
This is unprecedented what we're dealing with right now. This has never happened before.
I mean, it's bad enough you'd be locking out people who can't afford a $500 video game console, but you're locking out people who can and just can't get one.
Right. That has never happened.
And I know that wasn't in their heads when they started doing, dual generation development. The reason you do that is because you don't want to cut out the millions and millions and millions of PS4 owners from giving you their money. But yeah, I really don't think it's that big a deal. Like it's especially since the upgrade in hardware on the new system is mostly bells and whistles. Like it's speed of loading, and it's the ray tracing if you want to lose some frame rate performance, and just sort of general details and sort of the amount of stuff that happens, and that's all stuff you can scale up and down with basically a detail slider.
Well, for example, just this week, PlayStation is finally launching the variable refresh rates on PS5.
Yeah.
It's finally being enabled this week. This console has been out for how long? This was promised at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to take them a while on some of this stuff. Like,
yeah.
look even how long it took them to just tell you which hard drive to use to
right.
upgrade the thing.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not sure what caused that. Like that, I don't really have a theory on that one. But I don't know. Like in the same way, I don't really see a lot of people on PC complaining that like they have the super high end card. If you can find one of the super
you can't find one of those either.
And like, but I don't see a lot of people complain like, oh, this game wasn't made. It was made and it still runs on like a Titan X, so it sucks because like they should have been. But like that's not really a thing. Like I don't, if the hardware is the same kind of, the hardware is just the same. It's just more powerful. You can just sort of up the thing. It's just that's basically.
Yeah, I mean,
a
look, there's supposed to be
slider.
ray tracing and all this stuff, but a lot of that stuff, like only a trained eye even notices it.
And there will be a mode where you can do that, and it'll look great. And and again, it's not like top of the line ray tracing. It's it's just it's not going to be.
It's like we can get it to work.
It works. It's there. You'll notice it.
Yeah.
It's not like even like you look at Miles Morales, and it's like it looks great, but they're not reflecting every single car and
even
every
Ratchet.
single thing. It's just there to make you your eye sees it and your brain acknowledges it, and it just makes it feel more real.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's things to be. I wonder what like the Demon's Souls remake would look like if it was also on PS4.
Mm-hmm.
Like would it still be as kind of lush?
No
as
way.
What is there?
I don't think that there's any way it would.
Well, I think it would be though. I think it just wouldn't look like that on PS4. Like you're talking about detail sliders. You're not talking about the game itself. The Demon's Souls itself is still Demon's Souls. Like that ran on a PS3. There's nothing that's doing geometry wise or gameplay wise that couldn't have been done 2 systems ago. It's just detail. It's just sliders. Like you theoretically could have done a PS4 version.
I mean, that's not 100% true. I mean, you have to program certain things like ray tracing to get it to work. It's not just a slider.
Yeah, but but ray tracing is that you turn it on, you turn it off.
After you programmed it, you can turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah, but there's nothing stopping you from doing that on the PS5 version. If you've got a PS4 version, both the Spider-Mans do it, and they have PS4 versions.
Yeah. A lot of it, I think, has to do with studio bandwidth and things like that as well. And
I
if
think Sony's
being paid by a publisher.
Sony took a while to kind of feel out whether it was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of the improvements on the performance with those modes like came after release with Spider-Man, and I think part of that was just bandwidth or time the company had to work on that. Obviously, that is not a thing you need to worry about just getting it out the door. You're not going to lose sales on that. It's more of a nice to have. And I'm sure God of War will have some similar stuff going on. We'll see. I don't think it's really in danger of missing the year, but obviously it always could happen.
I don't make declarations like that anymore.
I really think I really think God of War is 90% going to make it. So.
I've thought that about so many games.
Yeah, but I think that about very few games.
Yeah.
And I'm usually right.
Yeah.
I don't see this one missing. It's too important. It's too important to the schedule. Would it ruin everything if it moved to like February? No. Like
someone in chat was asking, because Sony has a deal with Hogwarts Legacy, if God of War then could be expendable.
No.
In Q4,
not a chance. I mean, look, you could still move it to the next quarter and make a lot of money, but it's an excellent Thanksgiving sales thing. And they got, as long as Hogwarts is going to make it in September, and it looks like it is going to make it September, hell or high water, whether it's finished or not.
Yeah.
Because Warner Brothers seems to have made some declarations. Same with Lego Star Wars. That game wasn't done.
It really wasn't done, which is hard to believe because it was in development for
I ran into
long.
so many bugs in that game.
The farther I got into it, the more buggy it got. Yep.
Yeah, it was like there were like things I had to restart the game to get rid of and stuff. Very unusual. And there's a couple quests in there. I was really open world in it for a while in there, and I just started hitting tons of quests that just weren't triggering, and I couldn't, resetting, reloading, everything, restarting the system.
Hate when you have to start
and
doing that
I was
stuff.
like, well, the only thing to do is wait for a patch.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing you can do.
Yep.
and so I've stopped playing it because I'm like, I'll wait until you finish the fucking game
Yeah.
after 4 years.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah. So, but
really is.
again, I think they had a hard deadline. Like, this is coming out now and whatever.
Yeah.
And I expect a big old patch for that game to be along any moment now.
Do you guys think that God of War's coming out this year for sure? How confident are you guys? Let us know in the chat.
I'm real confident about it in October for that one.
Million miles away. Thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. We appreciate it. See if anyone else slid in here at the last minute. Darmist, thank you for Twitch Prime as well. Congrim says this actually mimics the trickle of information drips from 2018. I do not remember exactly how the last one was promoted. Do you?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there wasn't a lot. Like, I don't remember knowing or seeing a ton of it.
Yeah.
Like, there were still a lot of questions about that game when it came out. Because, like, we'd seen it was different. We'd seen that it was...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but, like, in the end... like, I remember playing the game and feeling like there was a lot to discover. You know, because they did the one demo that was, like, the beginning. Like, where he teaches Atreus to hunt.
Yep.
And we didn't really see anything else for a long time. Like, they really seemed to just let that one thing speak for itself for a long time.
Yep.
It's also notable that, like, it also speaks somewhat to my point. Like, no one remembers the pre-release stuff once the thing's out.
Even we don't. It's our job. It's hard to remember everything. At a certain point, I think your brain just turns it off. It's like, okay, I'm good on that. I don't need to know any more about it, or I don't need to remember any more about it. Sneaky says TT switched to a new engine halfway through. I was not aware of that.
I mean, it is a better engine. I mean, just the fact that I can invert the Y.
Oh yeah,
is like, because for a long time, for whatever reason, the Lego engine did not support that, and it's maddening.
Yep. Cinetike, I'm confident but not sure. Justin Horman, I wouldn't put it on my draft. Cyber Exile 75%, Norix Nessie 50-50. Scorpio's Finest, we mentioned this, that a game dev set is coming in 2022. But still, that's not enough to convince some people.
Do I have that or you have that?
You have it.
I have that?
Yeah. Yep. They just showed off Unreal 5 next-gen engine. How many true next-gen experiences will be ready before year's end? I don't know. It doesn't seem like that many. Like none.
Zero.
Yeah. Commander Fed, I think it'll get pushed to next March or April. Noxator Knight is 75%, but my fantasy draft says 100%.
It wouldn't be April. It wouldn't drop out of the quarter.
Yeah. It would be before then.
You'd push it to February.
Yeah.
Backlash if it's delayed? No. I mean, people will be mad, but it's not like they're going to not buy the game.
Like, it's not going to keep people from buying it ultimately.
I mean, it would be disappointing for Christmas, but, like, you know, and Sony has done that before. You know, they did it with Horizon. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, play Call of Duty, losers.
I feel like that 75% figure probably is pretty accurate.
Yeah, I would go even higher. I think this thing's ready, and Sony Santa Monica is pretty reliable.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, not the Call of Duty, but how weird is the fucking Godzilla King Kong thing?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, I thought that was going to be like a Fortnite thing where, like, they were fighting in the background of the level or something, but you can just play as a guy who looks like Godzilla? What?
Yeah, that trailer was really misleading.
Yeah,
to say the least.
I don't know what to think about that.
I watched the trailer and I'm like, what is this? Yeah, I'm like, are you going to fight while they like destroy the arena?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like that, like what Fortnite did, where like you had the kaiju fight that happened. Yeah. And I thought, okay, they're cool. They're embracing that kind of thing. Like that's no, it's just Godzilla and Kong and Mechagodzilla outfits for
costume.
Godzilla operator. Like what?
That was hanging fruit.
That is the weirdest thing. I like. They don't look bad.
Yeah.
But it's so weird.
Well, it's because of the trailer.
Yeah. But I've seen
misleading.
Yeah, but also like just a guy dressed as Godzilla, like in that. It's okay. I mean, okay.
Well,
like,
legitimately, isn't Godzilla really a guy dressed as Godzilla in the first place?
But he's usually not carrying a machine gun.
That's true. In the next movie.
I hope one of his kill streak moves is breathing fire. Like,
or you can like slide a switch in the back of his head and a piece of plastic comes out of his mouth with fire on it. Remember that? The Godzilla that came out in like the 80s or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
That was it with the Shogun Warriors?
Shogun Warriors. I still have that.
And it had a switch and his tongue was just a piece of plastic that came out and had a sticker with fire on it.
Yep. And he shot his fist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because all the Shogun Warriors
his fist would fly off. Yeah, you kids don't know how good we had it, Matt and I, our toys. I'll say one thing. The toys weren't as safe back then.
No. I mean, like one kid swallowed and choked to death on a Battlestar Galactica missile, and every
And
missile,
that was it.
every
Everything
missile and every
changed.
toy looks ridiculous forever.
It's true. Yeah. All right. So anyway, that's the latest update on God of War. I think I got all your takes out of chat at this point. It looks like you guys have settled on around 75% it comes out this year. That sounds about right to me. Matt says a little bit higher. But I think we all agree that it's probably still going to make it this year, regardless of the weird messaging that Cory Barlog put out there on 420. All right, let's move on.
Maybe that's where the messaging was.
That might have been the problem.
We're working so hard. Not today.
We were.
We were. We will be. It's not ready.
That's hilarious. Corey's a good guy.
So you just didn't read. You just didn't read it in the right
You're right.
tone. That's the...
And I'll be honest. Like, he is very subdued. Did you watch it?
Yeah.
He's just kind of standing there. Like,
He's right. I'm just making what's probably gonna be the game of the year. It's cool. Whatever.
It's funny.
We've done this before.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
played Elden Ring. Elden Ring's pretty good. We might not win against that one. We don't know. I don't know. We're working on it.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about another PlayStation exclusive, and one that I have gone back to play because there's nothing else to play. And it's been about 2 months now since I had played the original batch of Horizon Forbidden West, and I had kind of forgotten how far I was into the game. And the first thing I will say is I was shocked at how far I was into the game. I was on the home stretch already. I kind of thought I was due to the goals that they had told you needed to accomplish throughout the course of the game. I had basically accomplished all the ones that they had asked me to do, which usually means, okay, now you're moving on to the final act. And as it turns out, that's pretty much what I was doing. And I will say this, my perspective on the game has changed. So I already talked last topic about visually, it's not blowing me away like it did when I played it the first time. Still a gorgeous game and amazing, but not blowing me away. But I've come across like a lot more like smaller issues playing it. Like I've noticed that Aloy gets hung up on the ground sometimes. Like there'll be stuff like the ground is very detailed, which is a big difference between it and the first game. And she will just like be running and she'll just get snagged on like a piece of geometry on the ground, and you have to actually like hit the jump button to like jump over it. I noticed that a bunch of times since I just started playing it again. The other thing that I noticed is at the end of the game, if you have not done a lot of side quests, the game gets really hard. So I had only completed...
That's in line with their approach to the DLC in the first game. Like the Frozen Wilds is real tough. Even if I was max level in that game when I played Frozen Wilds, and Frozen Wilds is the first time I think I died in Horizon in like 40 hours. Like it was something like, and there's a lot more of the Frozen Wilds enemy philosophy in all of Forbidden West, which I think is a good thing. Like they're more dangerous now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see that curve getting pretty drastic if you aren't doing all the side stuff.
I had only completed like 4 side quests, I think, and I had only done those because I needed to talk about them to see how good they were. And
some of the side quests are pretty substantial in terms of the XP they give you.
They're huge. Well, the XP is huge, and the side
long,
quests themselves are huge and long. So essentially what happened is I went into this dungeon, for lack of a better descriptive word or a more descriptive word, and I fought all the way through this dungeon. And there was like, I think 2 bosses that I had already beaten and had fought all the way through. And then I get to the final boss in the dungeon, which is like a slitherback or something like that. Gigantic.
The snake.
No, it almost looks like a T-Rex, and it's gigantic. It's like the size of like 3 buildings or whatever, and it's impossible.
Not a Thunderjaw?
No,
Different
it's bigger than the Thunderjaw. Right. I think it's supposed to be one of the final bosses in the game. I think there's more to go, but it's one of the big end bosses, and I cannot beat it. There's just no way I cannot beat it. I almost cheesed it one time because you fight it in this big arena. And there's like geometry along the walls that you can kind of climb up. And there was one time where I like climbed up geometry and kind of got tucked into like a cubby hole, and a lot of its attacks couldn't hit me. And I almost beat it that time. I could never replicate that again, and I couldn't beat it. And there was no way to turn around and go back. And I could not use fast travel because I don't have a fast travel item. So in the game, to fast travel for free, you have to make it to a fire pit. If you don't make it to a fire pit and you want to fast travel, there's an item that you can get that will let you fast travel from anywhere. I was out of those. I don't know why. I think I just stupidly fast traveled at some point in the game, just using it and not thinking. I could not get out. So there was a point where I went through a door and the door just shut off and there's no way to get out. And so I don't even know if you know this, Matt, but there's a special save in the game for this. It's like they played and they're like, oh crap, I'm stuck here and I can't get out. And it's called like something like boss special save. And if you load that, it will take you out and back out to the world. So I did finally get out. And so I'm like, all right, well, I need to level up. Obviously, I'm not powerful enough. So I started doing side quests, and I finally really dove into the side quests. And here's actually something that I learned that makes me like the game more. The side quests in this game are awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, they're insane.
They took definite inspiration from The Witcher 3.
Yes. I mean, they are in depth with their own little storylines, and like they're tough too.
And they teach you more about the world, and they open up stuff to you.
I wish I had played more of them before I talked about it the first time on GameFace, I guess is what I'm getting at. Because I thought they were good back then, but now I'm kind of blown away by them, honestly. So now I'm back out in the world, and I'm trying these side missions, and I'm trying to do the side missions that are the toughest ones because they give you the most XP, and they're hard as crap, man. Like, just fighting some of the creatures in these side missions, I'm getting my ass whooped.
Yeah,
and
I haven't played in a lot. I mean, I did actually load it up this week and thought about getting back into it, and then I was like, no.
It's not that hard, actually.
Probably not, but I just wasn't. I went back to sort of mindlessly playing No Man's Sky some more, which is a lot easier for me.
Yeah.
Which would probably be the opposite for you. Like if you haven't played No Man's Sky in forever, you're just like, I don't know how any of this shit works anymore, because it's all different than the last time you played it, probably. But that's automatic for me. And this was like, I got over, because like one of the things about the fights in this that is not true of the first game, because you could brute force your way through the first game.
Yep.
You could just like, you had strong enough arrows and you were good enough at dodging, you could just chip them away.
You just fight your way. Yeah.
This one, like you really gotta know the weaknesses. You gotta know what elements to use against what is on their body.
That's exactly where I was headed with this whole thing.
So like it's like they make you use the whole system, which I think is good. I think is how it should be. But like
I think it
can be hard to come back to.
But Matt, it's like what I realize is that in this game, even for these side missions where you're fighting these smaller enemies, you have to use the right elemental attack. So you need to scan the enemy. You need to figure out what it's weak against, and you need to use it. Well, Matt, like I went into like all the buffs basically that I can attach to all my weapons, and I don't even have buffs for a lot of the weaknesses that the enemies have.
You got to be keeping up with the weapons.
Yeah, and it's like this whole thing that I just had not paid attention to, because you're right. The first game, I didn't have to do any of this.
No, you don't.
Like I was just good enough with my weapons and my bow that I could just make it through the game.
Like I think the first game I just used. I used Tear Blast arrows and Hardpoint arrows, and that's about it.
That's all you needed.
I didn't need anything else except for very special circumstances.
Yeah, and this game, not that way at all. In fact, you will not finish it unless you start to build up an arsenal of things you can attach to your weapons that run the gamut.
Anything beyond sort of like that second level of enemy, sort of the general grazers or pronghorns or anything above that, like once you hit like kind of the Ravagers or higher or stronger, like you're going to need to take them apart.
Yeah, and you also, you're right, you need to pick the parts off. Sometimes, like some of the boss fights later on in the game, Matt, the only way you beat the boss fight is if you take their weapon off. Yeah. You knock it off, and then you pick up their weapon and use it against them.
Yeah. And the only enemy I would really do that regularly with in the first game was the Thunderjaw.
Right. Yep. In this game, at the end, you have to use it for every boss that you fight. The last third of the game.
And I appreciate that. Yeah, like there's, I've certainly had times when I need particular components because I want a particular upgrade for the pouches usually, and I'm just like, I don't have that. I can tell where that comes from. I'm gonna go, and I gotta go find one of usually the giant turtle. I remember the most memorable were the turtles. I needed turtle, like the little fasteners that hold the shell on, basically. And so you have to kind of like run around and dodge the thing and pop the little clamps off the shell, and that'll drop the thing that you need to pick up. And like, so I had to do that a few times. And those fights were like 15 minutes long because I wasn't even able to kill them as efficiently as I knew how to kill them. I had to kill them in a certain way so I'd get the most components off them.
Yep.
And like, I think that's a lot of fun. I really like that.
It is fun, but basically what happened to me, Matt, is I got to the end of the game and I was screwed. There was no way I could finish the game. I had to get out, use that special save to get out of there, and go back and start completing side missions and start intentionally looking for those buffs that I knew I was going to need to fight this boss that kicked my butt like 20 times. I'll be honest, Matt, that boss whooped my ass worse than any boss in Elden Ring that I fought.
At least they knew that was a thing, and they put those saves in.
Yeah.
A lot of developers wouldn't have like recognized that.
I would have had to have figured out. I would have had to have gotten lucky and cheesed the boss the way I did the one time when I almost beat it. There's no way I could have beat it with legitimate
that's good, though.
means.
If you're going to make the system work that way, you're going to need to give people an escape
out.
hatch.
Yeah.
So.
And I didn't even know it was there at first, Matt, and I just kept banging my head against the wall. I was honestly like, dude, this is like playing Dark Souls. Yeah. I'm like, I'm stuck. This door is shut. I can't go back through the door, and I have to beat this boss. And then finally I Googled it. I'm like, stuck in Horizon Forbidden West. Can't get out of dungeon. And someone was like, hey, look. And the other thing, too, about it, Matt, is when you go to load, like the first 10 saves in the load list aren't that save.
Yeah, they're at the bottom.
It's almost at the bottom of the list of the saves to load. So thank God for the internet.
It does tell you about that, but I think it's very, very early.
I definitely missed it. And because there was so much time between when I played it the first time and I'm picking it back up.
Yeah.
So
I think it tells you that in the first like cauldron boss you fight.
Yeah.
It says like, oh, if you have a problem, you can go reload this.
Yeah.
And I remember that vaguely, but I've never had to do it. So I forgot about it until you mentioned it.
Yeah. And now I wonder too. It's like, okay, I fought the whole way through this dungeon, Matt, and it was tough.
I mean, you could always just drop the difficulty.
I'm not gonna do that. But it was tough. I fought through this whole dungeon. Now I wonder if I go back there, do I have to fight through that whole dungeon again? Because it was hard.
Probably.
Like, even the bosses that I beat?
I don't know about the boss. I think you probably have to traverse it again. Usually the bosses get saved, but I don't know. I don't know how that works. I've never done that.
I hope not. Because that was why I stood there and kept fighting the boss. I'm like, even once I found out that there was this save that I could use to get out of it, I was like, but wait a minute. What if I have to go through this dungeon again? And so I'm like, well, I'm going to fight him 5 more times and see if I can beat him. I never got close, and I was like, screw it. Off I go. Because I also figured, like, if I'm struggling with this boss, there's going to be another boss that I'm also going to struggle with, because I realized at that point I did not have enough variety in my elemental buffs for my weapons. So ultimately I left, and now I'm back out in the open world again, just cleaning up like a bunch of side missions. The other thing I realized, though, through the course of this is that, like, I'm almost at the end. There's only 17 main missions in this game.
It's funny, like, you look at like kind of like the number of, you know, main missions for things, and it's like Dying Light has something like 8.
Right. Yeah.
But each one is really long and broken up
yeah.
in an individual. Yeah. So like it's interesting. Always interesting to me to see how developers like kind of break up their main quest, in like sometimes it seems like, oh, there's like 40 quests here. Or like Elix 2, I think, has like technically the main quest is like 5 or 6 quests long, but every one of those quests has like 30 steps.
Yeah.
You know. And sometimes they don't exactly tell you what the step is, or whether it's like sometimes it's just a little more trouble than it's worth.
Other thing I found, Matt,
it's just hard to gauge by looking at that. I try not to get into that anymore. Some of the side quests in this are like that too, where it's like, oh, just go do this thing. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of things between thing and thing.
Yeah. Also, Matt, I have not had a mount for the last like third of the game.
I never use mounts.
My mount got killed. And once your mount is killed, you can't call your mount anymore until you find another mount.
Yeah, you got to
You have to find another one and take it over again and override it. And I have not come across mounts. And so I have not had a mount for the last forever in this game.
It's because you got to do the cauldrons.
Right.
And get the overrides.
Yep, exactly.
I think my last mount was like some crazy, like I can like ride Thunderjaws now or something. And later on you get to ride flying things.
Right. Yeah.
So that's cool. I haven't done that yet.
But I have not done enough of those cauldrons, and so I can't find a mount.
Yeah.
So I've had to walk and run everywhere in this game.
I mean, I do that. I don't use the mounts.
Really?
I mean, I fast travel a lot because the fast travel's free between the bonfires.
Yeah.
But yeah, I generally run everywhere. The mounts the mounts I find very annoying to control.
They're a little unwieldy.
They get stuck on the ground way more than Aloy does, and Aloy does get stuck on the ground sometimes. Aloy's control frustrations for me are more in the climbing. Like, because,
it's
like I'm glad
too.
they freed the climbing up more than it was in the first game, but as a result, you end up sort of like glitching over rocks and stuff.
There's lots of times where you're supposed to be able to climb up and you can't.
Yeah, and I'm just like, what do you want me to do? Like, where do you want me to go? And then like you can tell, like, oh, I'm supposed to be able to grab that yellow thing up there, but it won't do the animation. So I got to back up and come back up, and now the animation works and stuff like that. I mean, maybe they patched it since then because I haven't played it, in 2 months. Like, but like, that was the biggest frustration for me in terms of kind of just general control and riding some, especially some of the bigger mounts like the bulls or the buffalo or whatever they are. Like, those fuckers don't turn, and
they're
get
hard to control.
Like they get stuck on little like rock formations on the side of the road. I'm just like, just let me go over it.
Yeah, just act like they're not there.
Just let me slide around it. Like
yeah.
Like I don't understand the point of that.
I also had issues.
Feels like an oversight.
Now that I've come back to it, where I was running up to this door and a bunch of boulders fall down before you get to the door, and the boulders fell in such a way that Aloy got stuck in between the boulders, and I had to reset the game. Like,
I've gotten trapped between things like that a couple times.
I've been in the woods and just got completely covered by foliage and can't tell where to go, can't see anything. There's all kinds of little stuff like that in this game, and for whatever reason, now that I've gone back to it, a lot of it seems to be happening to me now that I've gone back, which is really bizarre. So it's been like a mixed bag. Like, there's some things that I think I appreciate more now that I've gone back to it, like the side missions. Like, I should have dove into those more than I did back when I first played it. But there's a lot of stuff that has made me like it less, and I would argue more that has made me like it less than stuff that has made me like it more, which I'm a little surprised at. But one thing I will say, Matt, is don't be afraid to go back to this game. It's really not hard at all. Like, I was like you. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to forget how to do everything. And I didn't. Like, the only thing that I forgot how to do was pull out the grapple thing that pulls the gates off of pathways that you can go down. I had forgotten that you pull up your boat and then you tap the triangle button and it switches.
Yeah, the old Metroid trick.
Yeah. But other than that, like, I was able to just pick right up and keep going. So don't be intimidated by that.
I'm sure it'd be fine. It was just one of those things where I loaded it up and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this right now.
Yeah.
Like, not that I don't like the game. I like the game a lot, but like, it was just one of those things. I just want to play something I don't need to think about what I'm doing.
There may be a lot of people in the same boat, because a lot of people may have started playing this and then got hooked on Elden Ring and haven't gone back. So I'm just saying, for everyone,
I should also
don't be afraid.
I should also go finish Elden Ring. Like, I have nothing left to do.
You haven't finished it yet?
I have nothing left to do but like do the final thing.
Oh,
I just haven't gone back.
Interesting. I thought for sure you had finished it by now and you started your second run or something, like a lot of people have.
That's also kind of part of the delay on that. Was I know as soon as I do it, I'm going to start the second run. Be like, oh, I can do this, and I can do this. I'm going to get sucked back into it again. I probably wouldn't finish it a second time, but it would take up time.
Yeah, a lot of time.
And I would like to go. I would like to go back and finish this.
Yeah.
Just to see how it ends.
Erebus Jones asks, "Isn't being able to see more of the false just a case of 2 months later the novelty is worn off?" I would not agree with that at all, because I played it on my first run 20 some hours. Like, if I had played it for 5 or 10 hours, sure, I'd be like, yeah, I just hadn't seen enough, and I was just in the afterglow of playing a New Horizon. But I had settled in with this game real well. Like I said, when I went back to play it, I was basically on the end stretch of the game. I was farther along than I thought that I was, and I remembered that I was. So no, I don't think that that's it at all. I just think I didn't explore some parts of the game. Like, there aren't a lot of parts of this game where you get trapped in a dungeon like the one that I just got trapped in. Like, for the most part, most of this game is done outdoors, where you can just leave if you want to.
Yeah, really, it's just like some mission-based stuff, and the cauldrons are really the only things like that.
And so I encountered some stuff in the game I hadn't really encountered before. That
was a fun section.
What, the underwater stuff?
Thing in the casino. That was cool.
That whole Las Vegas thing was pretty cool.
The other thing I'm very impressed by, thinking about it now, I'm very impressed by how much they make me like a lot of the characters she meets. Just like the side people that you only see.
The people in Vegas, those guys,
those guys are a lot of, like, I don't even really like that tribe very. They're sort of like annoying engineer guys. Yeah. But like, those guys are like, they have a reason to be there. They, like, the one guy has a real opinion. The other guys who disagree with him, like, makes sense why they disagree. Like, it's a really well written little, like, group of 3 guys who Aloy runs into and is like, I need to get through this, so if you could all just get out of my way
and let me do it.
And let me do this. And they're like, oh my god, you're amazing. She's like, I know, just let me do the thing. It's a lot of fun. I do love, one of my favorite things about Aloy's character is how she's just over everything.
Oh yeah, she's just straight to the point.
She's got that Geralt thing where it's just like, can I just get through this without having to spend too much time with you idiots?
Yeah, the frivolities are...
Yeah. She's all business in the way Geralt is, and I think that's fun.
Yeah. Also, pro tip, go back to this place. Something awesome happens if you go back. And I'm not going to spoil it, but go back. It's honestly probably the most beautiful moment from the entire game.
I think I may have already done that.
Have you?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. And again, it's one of those things that you're playing, you're like, wow, like this is a side mission. Like, and it feels like a mission from most other action RPGs.
I mean, a lot of side mission stuff in this is some of the best.
It is.
I am a bit of a completionist with open world stuff, so I'll do a lot of I'll finish all the side stuff before I move the main quest forward, just as like sort of like a make sure I don't miss anything. But with this game, it's just like I do the side stuff not because of a completionist element, but because like these are really good.
It's good,
like, they're often better than the main quest.
Yep.
Stretches of the main quest are really good, but there's stretches of the main quest that are sort of like, getting to a new place, and in the meantime, you run all these side quests that like enhance getting to that new place by like really showing you stuff about that area. And like I do appreciate how much work they put into the world building and the lore with like, when you encounter all these different groups and cities and tribes of people, and you sort of get to piece together like why they are what they are because of the remnants and relics of the old world that they were let out into, what they kind of grew up around more or less. And you see how their cultures develop because they're dealing with like sort of things they don't understand that are like technology from the old world, but it's just like what they know, so they've sort of adapted into either a religious system or a caste system or a social order, and like that's really interesting. Like that, and it's also doubly interesting that like how to see how Aloy deals with them, because Aloy knows it's all bullshit. Aloy knows what all this stuff is, and I also really appreciate that she teaches her friends how to use the focuses.
Oh, right.
And it's like, everything you know is wrong.
Yeah.
And you're going to sit in this room until you figure that out.
Yeah. And there are a couple other things that I noticed too going back to it. Like crafting in this game is pretty much pointless. Like,
I mean, other than ammo, that's about it.
But otherwise, like, you hardly do it. Like, upgrading your weapons, like, hardly ever happens. Like, I got to a certain point where I had, like, the first extra level or two for each weapon, and now it's like you have to go find very specific things to upgrade the weapons. And so I haven't.
Which become more plentiful later, but, like, a level 3 weapon is going to get you pretty far, especially if it's one that you've gotten recently or that fits your play style well.
Yeah.
You haven't really. I've definitely been hanging on to the really high, rare components for like when I find weapons that I know I'm going to want forever, and that usually also comes in conjunction with like, okay, this one's purple.
It's also a little bit like Elden Ring in that there's like no clear better weapon, no clear better armor.
Yeah, they worked really hard to make sure there was no best.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this protects me more against this kind of element, but it's worse against this other element.
Yeah, they want you to pick your weapons based on the situation as best you can. I usually keep, just in the equip slots, I keep sort of something for every element, and right now... Like,
I wish I had done that.
And I remember, like, for a long time, my only weapon that had one particular element, I can't remember which one it was probably... I think it was purple. It was either the corruption or lightning. But the only one I had was this like stupid little slingshot. And finally I found a bow. Like I prefer hunter and predator bows above everything else, and
I use hunter bows almost exclusively.
And finally I found a hunter bow that had that element. I'm like, bought, like, it was like, because I do use the elements a lot, but I don't use the traps and I don't use the different weapons too much. And if there ever comes a time when I can just have a whole fleet of bows that do everything, I will absolutely do that.
That's what I should have done. A lot of bows that I'm like, this is no more powerful than this bow I've been using, so I wouldn't buy it. I ignored that it had an element.
Had different elements,
and that's what I should have been doing, was buying those extra bows.
And I've got rope casters in case I need to tie down a flying enemy or things like that. But for like kind of daily drivers, I've just got this whole. Aloy's got like 5 bows strapped on her, and she's just like picking the one that I was like, maybe you just use the different arrows,
right?
In one
exactly.
In one bow.
It is weird too how they make you assign the different bows to the weapon wheel when it could have. You're right. Could have just all been done with arrows. Like, they could have just given you, like, here's the bow you're going to use. And you can choose another bow, but you're actually, when you choose the weapon wheel, you're choosing different bows. You're not choosing just the arrows. And then sometimes within each bow, there will be different arrows.
Each bow has 2 or 3 different arrow types.
Right.
But like,
and then the arrow types and then depending on what you do with the skill tree, that changes as well. You hit left or right on the D-pad, so if you want to fire like a volley of 3 arrows with each pull, or if you want to fire a more powerful single arrow, you can select that. It is crazy how deep it goes, and I should have been diving into that system
more. And it was
more.
Interesting, like, getting further in the game and realizing, like, oh, I got to use these skills she has. Well, she can do like the super shots and everything.
Yeah, you have to.
Oh, those are necessary for certain things.
They kill. They destroy. Yeah. So anyway, There are parts of it that I like more. There are parts that I like less coming back to it. I would argue the parts that I like less are a little more prevalent. But I would say if you're like me and you kind of got pretty far into the game and you're like, this happens a lot with action RPGs for me. Mm-hmm. You go to think about going back, you're like, oh gosh, like I don't think I'll be able to remember how to do everything. This game is not like that. It is very easy to just pick up and just start going again. Again, there was like one little thing that I had forgotten how to do, and I figured it out pretty quickly anyway. So, I mean, then there's the internet there because the game's been out for a long time. Worst case scenario, you can just Google stuff and figure it out pretty quickly as well. So
that was one of the problems with Lego Star Wars was like there is so much stuff in that game that there were no guides for some things. And so like I did a thing where I'm like, this isn't work. Is this not working because I don't know what I'm doing, or is it not working because it's broken?
Yeah.
And sometimes I just couldn't find any information. I'd have to find. I would find like one question about that quest on like a subreddit, and someone's like, "Is this not working?" And it's like when I did it like this. Like that's not working. I guess it's a glitch, and that's all. But that's like the most concrete info you would have about that one, Kyber brick or whatever.
Yeah.
It became very frustrating. For the first time in probably 20 years, I wish there was just a strategy book I could buy for that.
Yeah.
But then I guess it doesn't matter if it's not going to activate the quest properly.
Right. I mean, chances are it's probably just broken.
Yeah, I think that was it. And it's a shame.
It is. They'll fix it, though.
They will.
They've sold way too many of them to not fix it. So you should be good. So
I'm surprised they don't seem to have any actual playable DLC plan. I know they got characters in the pipeline. But it feels like... Okay, it feels like maybe you want to make a Mandalorian game on its own. Like, it feels like maybe there's a market for a Lego Star Wars Disney Plus game. Like where it's just Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka and all that all on its own game. But like, how about a Rogue One level or I don't want to play a solo level, but like, but you could make it anyway. You don't have to listen to me. Yeah. It feels like there's maybe you should support it further, but who knows if they will.
Oh, by the way, before we move on to the next topic, I should bring back up Hello Neighbor 2 from last week. So after we had the discussion about, it doesn't come out to December, I went home and got the show rendering and everything and worked on Good Morning Gaming for the next morning. And once I got done with that, I went back and checked the email, and sure enough, it is called review code over and over and over again in that email.
Weird.
Yeah. He's like, you can review it. This is the embargo. The embargo was actually way before we even talked about it. I don't know. It's bizarre. But anyway, I was like, man, there's no way I would have made that mistake. So I just went back to just double check to make sure in that email, it is called review code. You can review this over and over again. So I don't know what Tiny Bill was thinking there, but anyway.
Shiniki says the rumor is their next game is a Clone Wars game that covers the whole series.
Oh.
That'd be cool.
Clone Wars is great.
Yeah,
it really is.
Good.
Yeah, I watched it over the holidays finally, and I was like, "Oh man, why did I put this off for so long?" Really, really good. Okay, we got to move on because we have so many topics to get to. We're gonna have to start going through these like machine gun fire. Next up, we're gonna talk about Ubisoft, and according to Kotaku and Bloomberg, reporting over the weekend, Ubisoft is on the block, officially on the block, and not only on the block, there are tons of private equity firms that are smelling blood and are swimming around in the water right now. Both Kotaku and Bloomberg are saying that Ubisoft is accepting multiple offers right now and trying to figure out which the best one is. I believe it was Kotaku that mentioned that Yves' son, who was supposed to be the heir apparent to take over Ubisoft, left Ubisoft and basically said, I do not want to run the family business. And so Kotaku believes that once Yves' heir decided he didn't want to be a part of it anymore, that was the final straw, because you got to remember, Matt, back in 2018, which wasn't that long ago, Vivendi tried a hostile takeover of Ubisoft, and Yves Guillemot basically said, I'll do whatever it takes to stop this, and they did stop it. But now, 4 years on, it does appear that he has had a change of heart, and Ubisoft is on the block. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, Ubisoft, Nintendo is going to buy him, or Microsoft is going to buy him, or PlayStation is going to buy him. No, it does not sound like that is going to be the case at all. It sounds like they're going to get snatched up by a private equity firm, which basically...
Like it's going to be like a THQ Nordic thing.
Yes, which basically the object for a private equity firm is to buy a company, increase its value through better management, and then sell it.
Or go in, leverage the debt, set up basically a shell around that so that they don't get hit with it, and if they sell the company off or default on the company, they get away with the money and the company's left holding the bag, which is what happened to Toys R Us.
Right.
So they could Bain Capital it if they wanted to tank it. And then you'd have an interplay situation where Ubisoft had to sell off all its IPs and disappear like a flan in a cupboard. But not. I mean, probably not. But it's definitely on the table depending on who gets them.
Here's the crazy thing, Matt. Ubisoft stock right now is at $40 a share. Back in 2018, when Vivendi wanted to take it over, it was at 108. I mean, that is like 60% or 70% of your stock value just wiped out.
A bargain.
It's a bargain, which is why the sharks are in the water, because also the stock market right now is going down in general. And so if you have money right now, now is a good time to buy. And it looks like Ubisoft may get snatched up, but not by what people, I think, had assumed all along, which would be one of the 3 platform holders to add their games to his portfolio.
I mean, I'm sure they're still in the mix, but who knows?
Matt,
some of those firms might be proxies.
Right, that's true.
You don't know.
It is true. But here's the thing, Matt. I mean, I think that stock price is right.
I mean, at this point, yeah, probably.
Ubisoft, to me, has really fallen.
Yeah, I mean their output has been spotty, and a bunch of stuff that they've put on the block to be something to look forward to has not materialized. Like Skull and Bones, just who knows? Beyond Good and Evil 2 does not exist. As far as
I'm really
people
starting
say.
to wonder if it's even really a game anymore.
There are some people who say it never was. That it was basically just a marketing push, and like nothing we saw was actually real.
Really?
And some of the people who say that should know. And it's weird because like clearly there's something there, but you wonder what's happening behind the. But also like Ubisoft does that all the time. They do that thing where it's like it goes even back to their most successful time, where like we're gonna show you this thing. It might never be real. Here's this fucking laser tag game like that never got mentioned again. You know, like or did it?
No, actually, I think it was released. I think they actually released it, but it was but it wasn't really a game.
Nobody remembers.
Yeah, but you're right. Like they throw stuff out there and then it just disappears and you never hear about it again. But really, when I was starting to gather B-roll and footage for this, I'm like, what is Ubisoft now? It's Assassin's Creed, which
Rainbow Six Siege and Ghost Recon.
Yeah,
and sometimes Just Dance
and
Rabbids, I guess. I mean, they put out the Nintendo deal periodically.
But one of his big IP was Watch Dogs, and Watch Dogs Legion completely tanked. I don't even know if that's ever coming back.
It won't. I mean, I respect them for how much they gave that concept a shot. They gave Watch Dogs 3 chances, and none of them. The first one sold well, but it was not a good game. And then the second one was a better game, but sold like terrible,
horribly.
And then the third one was a really cool idea that didn't quite live up to its idea, and didn't live up to what they needed to sell either. So it's like I appreciate that they stuck with Watch Dogs for as long as they did, because a lot of other companies would have just abandoned it after the second one. There's something there. Like there's something in the Watch Dogs concept that would be a great game, but they never found it.
Well, it's a tech-driven open-world action RPG. So obviously someone should be able to do something with it, but Ubisoft has a lot of talent and it hasn't managed to make it work. So, and then you start thinking about Far Cry. Far Cry 6 just came out. It was hardly a blip on the radar.
Yeah, I forget. I love Far Cry, but like, yeah, that game
did
vanished.
Not suck me in. It just didn't. Like most Far Cry games, I get sucked in. I end up playing them all the way to the end. I played that game just enough to talk about it intelligently on this show, and I had no interest really in going back and playing it more.
I did play that more, but I don't think I ever finished it. It's just too big. Is too much. I mean,
do you think that's part of the problem with Ubisoft? Is that its games are just too freaking gigantic?
I don't think so, because most people don't finish games, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But like, I will say that like, I like Valhalla a lot. I played Valhalla. I think my save on Valhalla is in around the 170 hours mark. But that Dawn of Ragnarok DLC came out at
$40.
I loaded the game. I did the whole thing. I reinstalled Odyssey. And I played the new free quest that like connects that game's story to Valhalla, where basically Cassandra says, I got to go to this other place, which is clearly implied to be North America because she's immortal and has to travel the world and gather the pieces of Eden or whatever. And then there's a thing in the new DLC where Eivor meets Cassandra, or I guess Alexios if you played him for some reason. But Cassandra, I think, is the canon.
Yep.
Like Cassandra's the canon Odyssey hero, and I think male Eivor is the canon
Yep.
Valhalla.
Yep.
So Eivor and Cassandra meet, which is part of the thing, but also like the big chunk of the new paid DLC is more Norse god stuff, like Ragnarok. Like and the idea of going in and doing more of the Norse god stuff just made me feel so tired. Like
I think a lot of people, that's what I was getting at when I said, do you think Ubisoft's games are too big? People are at this point know what they are, and they're like, do I really want to get into that?
Yeah, I like Valhalla a lot. I do think
so do I.
I do think it's the least of the three of the ancient trilogy, as I guess they're called now.
Yeah.
I think Odyssey is probably the best one, and actually going back to play Odyssey on the Series X with the enhancements from Series, that game's really.
I like
good.
the setting of that game better.
Settings better. Yeah, the settings better. It was just nice to play an Assassin's Creed game. It was bright.
Yeah.
And it was like. There's water. And it was a little less oppressive.
Refreshing. Yeah.
And the other thing, I didn't realize I missed this so much in Valhalla, but the fact that Cassandra can jump off anything and not take damage,
right? Yeah.
Because she has the magic spear.
Right.
Wow, that frees the game up in a big way. Just like Horizon, where you can glide.
Yeah.
Like that changes everything.
Yeah, I don't think Assassin's Creed is the problem. I think that's the one good IP that Ubisoft has. They can rely on for big sales.
I will say my big reaction to Dawn of Ragnarok is I'm not done with Assassin's Creed, but I'm really ready for a new game.
Yeah.
I'm really ready for a new setting and a new main character and a new like I've had enough of Valhalla. I haven't had enough Assassin's Creed, but I've had enough Valhalla.
Somebody brought up what about Riders Republic? Commander Fett asked about Riders Republic.
Mm-hmm. You like that?
I loved Riders Republic, and there's like DLC coming out for it soon, but it tanked. It did horrible. And also, I mean, another game that Ubisoft is...
So does that tank because no one cares, or does it tank because nobody cares about the theme, or because nobody cares about Ubisoft's take on the theme?
I think it's a combo of all of it. I think people are like, oh, if that's... A lot of people...
Nobody know it came out? Because I didn't.
First of all, I don't think the average consumer knows that like Ubisoft made Riders Republic.
No.
If it did, I do think they would be like, oh, that game's probably gigantic, and I'll only play like a sliver of it, and then I'll get tired of it or whatever. So that could have played it into it a little bit, but it's just extreme sports games that aren't Tony Hawk's Pro Skater just do not do well at retail, and they haven't for a long time. And arguably, even Tony's games don't do all that great anymore. When they remade Part 1 and 2, it was a nostalgia play, and it sold pretty well, but his prior, 5 or 6 games before that had done horribly. And obviously, Skate went away for a long time. We're going to get a new Skate here coming up soon. It'll be interesting to see how that game does, but just the interest in general in extreme sports games, winter sports games, is just minimal. So when you say, what about Riders Republic, that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, is that Ubisoft's products are just not, they just don't sell. People just, it's almost like Bethesda in a lot of ways.
Yeah, a lot of them do sell, but they don't sell in the numbers that you would expect a company as prominent as Ubisoft to sell in. And it's not like it's not like the sales have really dropped, but they haven't gone, the infinite growth thing hasn't happened to Ubisoft, Yep. These games still sell about what they would have sold 10 years ago, and while 10 years ago those sales would have been amazing, they are not amazing anymore because things have gotten,
except for Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed still does it.
So I do wonder.
I am astounded at how fast they shut Breakpoint down.
Yeah.
That must have been done even worse than we thought.
Yeah.
In the end.
But I think a lot of Ubi's games just aren't delivering anymore. And so, to me, the value of Ubisoft has really fallen in the last 5 or 6 years.
And I do, as much as I still like Assassin's Creed, and I appreciate what they're after in a bunch of these games, it's I think people are done hoping they're going to do anything new anymore. I don't think if they put out another Ghost Recon trailer, all gussied up the way Breakpoints was, I don't think this time you would believe that it was going to be a complete reinvention of the format the way you did before. And I was like, nah, it's going to be the same game in a different jungle. And you're like, no, look at all that. They're not going to, that's not going to fool anybody anymore. Yeah. And part of their image problem is that nobody expects anything exciting from them anymore.
Yeah. I mean, they got Siege. Is that 8 years old now?
Yeah, about that. It's up there.
It's one of its biggest games. It's 8 years old.
And it's good for longevity as an online multiplayer platform, but what else?
Yeah, I mean, it's ripe for the pickings, is what I'm getting at. And
they could have really used some stuff that was out of the box, like Beyond Good and Evil 2, or Skull and Bones, something to shake up the catalog a little bit, or even For Honor. Was more of a step in the right direction. I mean,
and now that game's 8 years old.
Yeah, they still support it.
They do.
Credit, but
they still put out DLC for it all the time.
But you could do more with that. I don't know. Like, it's subjective, I guess, but Far Cry 6 is a finely put together game from a technical perspective, but like, I just don't think the setting and it has much bite to it. And I guess you could kind of say that about the last couple, but like Far Cry 5 didn't set my world on fire, but like the idea of what they were going for was interesting and made me excited, and I wasn't disappointed by it until I played it and realized that they were going to chicken out on the concept of the story, and it was gonna. I will give Far Cry 6 credit for being way less into the weird drug levels, which got old about 3 games ago.
Yeah.
And like having gone back and played it again, because they included it in the game, as a update later. Blood Dragon is still pretty great.
Yeah,
and like
it's still really great.
Far Cry it remains sort of at its best when it's doing the weird side things.
Agreed.
Like Blood Dragon, Primal, and even New Dawn.
New Dawn, yep.
Those are the best ones.
I agree.
Like, once they kind of get everything down and then they take the thing and just go play with it, like, you should do those first.
Yeah.
Like, don't stop trying to tell these, like, serious stories with this shit. Just go crazy.
Yeah, and have fun with it. I mean, then you have games like Roller Champions, which is like a roller derby game.
Did
like,
that
who
come out?
greenlit that game? There's a beta that's about to happen. Like, it hasn't been canceled yet. Like, it's coming out soon. But, like, who greenlit that game and thought it was a good idea? Like,
I don't know.
There's a lot of chatter in our chat, too. Let's go to that right now, because you guys are posting some great stuff in here with your impressions of what's going on with Ubisoft. GS Gear says their open world games are just a checklist simulator. I think a lot of people would agree with that. I think Assassin's Creed was probably the template for that.
Yeah, and I think a bunch of them like do that better or worse. Like, to me, the Ghost Recon games are the worst about that. Like, there's no reason to do anything there except to check all those boxes in that menu. And Sleeping Turtle 3 also is like, where's the Sands of Time remake?
Right.
What happened to that? Yeah. That game, that's almost a year late at this point.
Sneaky Charlotte Snake says, they're too big, overwhelming. I nor my friends buy them anymore. He's speaking about open world Ubisoft games. Squishy says, 170 hours in Valhalla. What a trooper. Talking about you.
Yeah.
Next Level says,
Valhalla is a great podcast game. Like, just turn the sound down, turn the subtitles on, put podcasts or audiobooks on, and just run through.
Keep on hacking and slashing.
Because those side quests never run out. They just never keep going and going and going.
Yeah. He said he liked Far Cry 6. He thought it was great, but it's probably because it was the last one he had played before since Far Cry 2. Yeah.
That'll do it.
I've played them all. So
Far Cry 2 is really good. I went back like a year or two ago, I think during the lockdown. I think I went back and I played Far Cry 2 with some mods that made some of the more frustrating elements of it a little less frustrating. But that game's still really, that's the template for the most of the rest of Far Cry. But like, that's really good. And I don't think they've ever topped the organic feeling of something accidentally getting set on fire and ruining the entire fight. Like suddenly the grasslands you're fighting in are on fire and you have to maneuver around this and your enemies are moving away from them, and it's real. That game's still really good.
Let's see.
And I do like having to physically look at the map.
Yeah.
And figure out where I need to go from there, because it's like a little bit more like a survival thing.
Nexus 6 Batty says The Division is a success. Agreed. Yeah, that's one of their other IP that's actually done pretty well.
I forget about The Division.
Yeah. And they have managed to find at least something that feels a little bit different than their other games there. Vincent says Prince of Persia is weird. Remember that Ori-like Prince of Persia that leaked? Oh, that's right. Yeah. What happened to that too?
A lot of that.
Yeah. So I guess what we're getting at here is that, like, if you're looking to buy a publisher right now, Ubisoft is at rock bottom.
And I wonder what, like, if you do buy them, what do you do with them? Like, do you just keep doing the same thing? Do you try to reinvent all these wheels? Do you?
Well, I think first of all, you start saying no to their wacky ideas like Roller Champions and Riders Republic.
And then, like, they are trying to move into movies. Like, there's a Rabbids movie in development, a live action one.
I'd probably tell them to get out of that too.
It seems like a losing proposition, especially
their properties just aren't popular.
It's one thing to it sucks that Minions basically stole the Rabbids thing, but I don't know if competing with them in the same arena is a good idea.
It's not a good idea.
People are just going to see the trailer for that and be like, "That's just Minions with rabbits."
Assassin's Creed is big enough for films, as
they tried.
There's already been one, and it wasn't terrible.
No, it wasn't.
But the rest of their
good.
IP, not big enough.
I never thought that the forerunner and pioneer of how to do video game movie adaptations was going to turn out to be Sonic the Hedgehog. But here we are.
It's a weird world.
And now Mario slipped to next year.
Yep.
So it makes me wonder what's going on there.
Yeah, it's a little
I mean,
weird.
part of that is just trying to get away from Avatar.
Oh.
Because they were going to launch a week after Avatar 2 and Aquaman 2. Which are both coming out on the same day as of now. Oh, no, Aquaman switched, didn't it? They slipped.
I don't know, actually.
They slipped Aquaman next year, and they put Shazam 2 on the same day as Avatar 2, which I don't think Avatar 2 is going to be the new #1 movie of all time, but you're crazy if
I
you want
wouldn't
to go
put
head-to-head.
anything against Avatar 2.
You want to go head-to-head with James Cameron, you're out of your mind.
And the marketing money that's going to be behind that,
Yeah,
there's
just
no way you're going to be able
forget
to compete.
it. Because Disney has to make you want to go visit that stupid theme park.
Right. That's right.
That they built to compete with the Harry Potter thing, which turned out to be pointless because A, no one cares about the Harry Potter thing anymore, and B, no one really cares about Pandora.
Yeah.
And the one that everybody really wanted was Star Wars, and Bob Chapek fucked that up, so the big Galactic Star Cruiser hotel is a giant bust.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's awful apparently.
Really?
Jenny Nicholson is about to do a big video about it where she went on her own dime, spent $6,000.
Oh.
Because it's like the package to go and to stay and all it's thousands and thousands of dollars.
No
and
way.
It's like the cost of a real cruise to the moon or something. And like she's like, yeah, they lost my droid and like the choose your own adventure storyline, like you get to see one of 6 plot lines. And I'm like, are you telling me for $6,000 I don't get to see everything?
You only
Bite me.
They want you to come back and do the other plot lines.
But then she posted like a picture of like, this is my sister and our view for the big finale in the storyline, and they're sitting at a table in the restaurant area, and it's just a big pillar. Like they can't see the actors that are acting out the thing because it's just a big pillar. And I'm like, why is there even a pillar in this room?
Right.
Like, how can you put a table behind that? And then they did one of the big things of the Galactic Star Cruiser thing is there's a new lightsaber that basically lights with an LED strip that pops out like an electric like a measuring tape, and it looks super realistic. Like in a dim light from a medium distance, it looks exactly like and the way that happens is the actress playing Rey lights it up, and you're like, oh, and then she leans down, puts it on the ground, and picks up the stunt saber to fight with, and it's the most obvious thing you've ever seen. It's just awful.
All just for $6,000.
And I was so excited about that stuff, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, it's not final. We're working on everything. It's because of the reactions to things, and I'm like, man, you're already charging people thousands of dollars for this. What about the people who paid to beta test your damn hotel?
Right.
Like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, they're going to throw a lot behind Avatar because they got to justify that land they've made, and I don't blame Nintendo for wanting to get away from that because putting it in, I think it's in April now, right?
Yeah.
That's a much
April
better
7th
place.
in the
That's
US.
a much better place.
The
for it.
28th in Japan, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vastly better placement. Like I think that's a very smart move.
All right. We got to move on. We're going to talk next about Blizzard and Diablo. Matt, remember...
Speaking of years in the making.
Right. Remember BlizzCon 2018? When they showed Diablo Immortal for the first time?
No.
You remember that.
I don't recall the taste of food or the taste, the touch of grass.
You don't remember all the fanboys freaking out and booing?
No, I remember the reaction as a mobile game, yeah.
Because they were like, oh, it's... Because basically...
They wanted Diablo 4 and they got
Diablo
Mobile.
Immortal. Diablo Immobile.
Yeah.
That's really good. So people freaked out, and I remember on GameFace, I made fun of them. I was like, oh, come on, get a freaking grip. Like, yeah, sure. They said
Diablo 4 will be along any decade now.
Yeah.
Just chill out.
You only have another 20 years to wait for Diablo 4. Well, it worked, Matt, because all the people freaking out, apparently Blizzard decided, you know what? They're right. We need to go back. And now...
We have to go back.
Yeah, there is a PC version of Diablo Immortal coming that not only is coming, is launching on the same day as the mobile version on June 2nd.
Well, I guess you can't say they don't listen.
Yeah.
As long as you don't work for them.
Right, yeah. They just listen to fans. They don't listen to their employees, apparently. So, Matt, this is a case where a developer or publisher listened to fans, and it actually worked out to the good. Can you think of any other examples, actually, where that was the case, where a publisher or developer listened to the fan base, and they made decisions that ended up working out well for the game?
It happens in fighting games a lot.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, people suggest balance changes or tweaks or things, and it does generally improve it.
Yeah.
Every once in a while with MMOs, I've seen that happen, like, but a lot of times not.
Remember WildStar, that MMO that was supposed to be like, hey, you guys are sick of how complicated World of Warcraft has become. Here's our MMO that's like OG World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
And then they let their fans basically design the game. And the fans are like, well, if you want it to be like OG World of Warcraft, there needs to be more grinding in this game.
It needs to be really grindy and very hard to understand. And
that's what they did.
Yeah.
And then it failed.
Whoops.
Within a year, they had to turn it free to play. And within 2 years after that, the studio folded.
Whoopsie.
So there's lots of cautionary tales of listening to fans being a bad idea. I do struggle to find too many where it was a good idea. I mean, you could argue that almost every time fans have decided to like really dog a developer over something, it ended up not working out.
Yeah, every once in a while you get what's like where everybody just wants this one particular change, and they get it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But in terms of like a full strategic realignment,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen too often.
It
Like,
doesn't. Yeah.
Certainly, I mean, why not make a PC version of it? I guess, like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's probably, you're probably just turning the sliders. I'm sure this will play like a, sort of like a Switch version of a mobile game. It's like, all right, it's just gonna play like, like the Switch version of, it's like the Switch version of Elder Scrolls Blades. It's like, all right, sure, you can play it like this.
Well, here is the PC trailer for it. Let's take a look at the footage and see if it is just a mobile game running on PC. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, but mobile games look pretty good now.
They do. That's true. Yeah. Not that I play a ton of them, but you're
Built
right.
for mobile.
I am pleasantly surprised a lot of times.
That doesn't look very good.
Yeah. I am pleasantly surprised by mobile games on a pretty continual basis. I will say that.
Yeah, like they're not bad.
I mean, they've come a long way.
Cool. Like, it doesn't look like Diablo 4 or anything.
No.
It looks nice.
It's passable, though.
Yeah, sure.
And the other thing, too, is that it has cross-save and cross-progression.
Oh, yeah,
so you can play it on your phone while you're out and about and then go home and pick it up right on your PC, which is really smart and a good idea. Mm-hmm. I don't know if... I'm guessing the PC version is going to be free to play. I would guess.
I don't know. It's a good question. Am I going to have to reinstall Battle.net?
Probably.
Because I'm not gonna.
Probably. You're probably going to have to. But it's very rare that fans freak out over something. The developer makes a change for the fans, and it works out great. But this is a perfect example of it. Like, I was not going to play this, and now I'm going to play it. So they just picked up one guy right here. What about you? Are you now willing to play Diablo Immortal?
No.
No? You're still not going to play it?
I'm not supporting Blizzard for any of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not going to deal with that until maybe they change over to Microsoft and make some changes.
Interesting.
Also, I don't.
When will that breaking point come for you?
I don't know. They don't put out anything I care about.
Yeah, you don't like Diablo?
I like Diablo, but not. I don't want to play a mobile Diablo. I don't care about this game. Diablo 4 maybe, but I feel like I've got some time before I need to worry about Diablo 4.
Yeah. Too much time, unfortunately. Yeah.
I don't care about. I mean, I haven't even thought about Overwatch, and I don't know how long.
Yeah.
I tell you what I would like to see. I would like to watch a no-clip documentary about the fall of Overwatch, about how that all just disintegrated out from under everything.
So right now, in fact, if you guys want to play Overwatch 2, there's signups right now if you want to go play it. And I did sign up for it, hoping I'll get in so we can talk about it here on GameFace, because we need games people to talk about. But I'm not overly excited about it. I was not a big fan of the first Overwatch, honestly.
I don't know anyone who is excited about
at this
Overwatch
point.
2.
Yeah.
Both because like they're not all that into Overwatch anymore, and because like they don't like the business model they've gone for here.
GS Gear says
I don't really have an opinion on that because I didn't care about Overwatch in the first place, but like it is telling that so many people I know who are hardcore Overwatch people are like, nah.
GS Gear says he won't go back in on Blizzard until Kotick is gone. That's probably a good benchmark.
Yeah, that's a good.
I think that makes the most sense. Nolan Elric says, "Didn't fans freaking out get a DLC in Mass Effect 3?"
Yeah. There was. Well, they put the ending patch in for that. They extended the ending, added some like here's what some Fast Times at Ridgemont High style. Here's what happened to some of the characters, and like made it a little clear what was going on. And I do think it's an improvement. I don't think the freaking out about that ending was all that reasonable, but I don't think the ending is amazing, but I think it's fine. Mm-hmm. The whole game is an ending, really. Yeah. But that was a positive change. I mean, I don't think it was a positive way to treat the developers, but the result in terms of the update was a better ending. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a decent example, I guess. The main thing I remember, that and the fact that Leviathan should have been part of the main game. Those are my Mass Effect 3 notes.
Liberal Hack says, isn't the newest iPhone like 3 times more powerful or double the power of a Switch? Feels like triple sometimes.
Yeah, they're up there.
Yeah. So it's
mean,
pretty crazy what these
this
little
isn't even
phones.
this isn't even a current. This is like a 12, I think I got, and it's still it definitely runs the stuff better than the Switch.
I mean, if you think about it, you attach controllers on the sides
Yeah.
of this, like you got a Switch. So yeah, it's not that far out of the realm of possibility. So, I'm gonna play Diablo Immortal. Honestly, like I do like Diablo, and I
might play it on my phone if I don't have to. If I can just download it and try it and not pay anything for it.
I will play on PC. I never play games on my phone, ever.
I just don't want to reinstall Battle.net and go through all that crap.
Yeah, of getting hacked. Because that's probably what will happen. It seems like everyone on Battle.net gets hacked eventually. So anyway, that's the latest update on Diablo Immortal. And again, it's coming to both PC and mobile on the same day, on June 2nd. I think you can sign up right now for that as well if you want to get in on it as soon as it launches. So there you go. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about one of our favorite developers in the industry, Amy Hennig. Great person, really smart developer. Worked at EA for a spell, working on a narrative-driven Star Wars game that was codenamed Project Ragtag. Basically, have you heard the story behind all that? About what happened there?
I mean, I saw her talk a little bit about it like a couple of years ago. I don't know. I haven't heard anything recently.
So I was discussing this on Good Morning Gaming, so I went to do research to figure out like what the overarching story is now that the dust is settled on everything. And essentially, EA felt that Project Ragtag was a single-player game, and that was something of the past.
Ah, yes. The old thing that proved by Fallen Order was the fastest selling anything that EA put out in forever. Yeah.
Well, so they took the game away from her team at EA and sent it to like EA Vancouver.
Yeah.
And she was working like
they were going to try to make it basically a game as a service.
Game as a service. And after a while, it sounds like there were conflicts between her and the EA Vancouver team, and that her team felt like the game had been taken away from them and blah, blah, blah. And it really had. And so basically she left and started her own new studio called Skydance New Media. And she already signed on for a Marvel game, and this week it was announced that she has also been handed now a Star Wars game.
Yeah, well, she's teamed up to form. Like, Skydance is an existing thing. Started by two people who went to my high school, actually.
Well, wait, there's a difference, though, isn't there?
This is a branch of Skydance.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I wondered why. I'm like, why would you name your company so similar?
Because it's the interactive branch of Skydance.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense now. I was like, why are there these two companies that sound so similar?
No, it's a new offshoot of Skydance.
Because my first question in this discussion was, okay, they're making a Marvel game and now a Star Wars game. Where are they going to get the bandwidth to do that as a new studio?
Because they're just they're an interactive wing of one of the major production houses right now. Like I said, like
what does Skydance do normally?
Skydance is a film production company. You'll see Skydance. I think they were on Top Gun Maverick.
Meaning they produce the whole film, or they just handle the CG?
They are a production house. They
Okay.
make the movie. They're one of the companies you contract to produce the movie.
Do they do CG in house there?
No, they're not a CG. They're effects company. They're a production company.
Okay, so they snap all the parts together into the film.
Think like Bad Robot.
Okay.
Or like a J.J. Abrams company, or
So how would that be advantageous for Amy Hennig and her crew?
because Skydance has tons of money.
Oh, the financial part of it, being able to staff up and get people in there.
So Skydance was founded by a brother and a sister who went to my high school, younger than me. And when I found out that, I was like, oh, wow, that's weird. Like, how did they get to do that? Because you're like, wow, that's a success story. And I looked up, and it turns out their father is the third most richest producer in film.
Oh.
That's how they founded that. He gave them millions of dollars and his contacts, and they decided to just do a studio. So the brother does the main thing, and the sister basically does big indie projects that lose tons of money, but it doesn't matter because they have tons of money. So and whereas the brother just does like the more kind of the bigger, more tentpole things that do succeed a little more. So this, I would imagine, is one of those ventures, and it's sort of like they can just throw money at this thing until they get a good game out of it, I think is the idea.
Now, one of the reasons that Amy's
Sort of like what THQ Nordic did.
Yeah, that's true.
Not buying up stuff, but like, Amy Hennig has nothing to do and wants to make a Marvel game and a Star Wars game. We can do that for you. We can make that happen.
Now, one of the reasons they say that Amy's game at EA was canceled, other than being a single-player game, and we should add that then after Amy left, EA gave the green light to the game we're seeing right now, which is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, a single-player narrative-driven game that did very, very well.
Although part of that does seem to, like, Respawn seems to have sort of strong-armed this game into existence at some point.
It had been worked on for a while before Respawn had even joined EA. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing it was not a Star Wars game, it was just a single-player game.
I think it might have been, at least they had it in mind, because they were working with EA at the time, and I think it might have been a proof-of-concept kind of thing. It's like, look what we could do. Mm-hmm. The other thing, of course, is that Fallen Order uses the Unreal Engine,
right?
And there are rumors that EA tried to make them switch to Frostbite, and they basically said go.
Well, now EA's moving to Unreal Engine across the board.
Yes, finally.
Pretty much most publishers are.
There's no reason
not to. There is no reason. It's dumb to build your own engine in 2022. So anyway, one of the reasons that Amy's game was canceled, aside from the fact that it was single player, was that it did not focus on the Jedi. And it was just these rank and file people in the Star Wars universe.
It really sounds like it was a solo game.
Kind of.
Like, because even that one little clip we saw, that really looks like... It looks like young Han Solo.
Yeah, I agree.
And considering that Solo tanked, is the only Star Wars movie to not do...
gangbusters.
Particularly well.
Yeah.
I mean, even Rise of Skywalker made $1 billion, and that movie was garbage. It just didn't work. I mean, look, the Solo, and I know people blame The Last Jedi for that, but it's wrong. What really happened is no one cares about that story, and it was kind of badly promoted. Put it this way. I bought tickets for that movie opening night, and I forgot I had them until that day. Like I went and saw the road show of 2001: A Space Odyssey at the Cinerama Dome with Jason Chung at 10 in the morning. And as we were leaving the theater, he's like, "Oh, a lot of space stuff for you today." I'm like, "Huh?" He's like, "Well, Solo's out today. I figured you'd have tickets for that." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I do have tickets." And
That's
the instant I don't remember a Star Wars movie's coming out, you fucked up.
Yeah.
So I can see why you would shut that project down if it was basically trying to ride the coattails of Solo, because like there's no market for Solo.
Yeah.
This on the other, and then that's doubly weird because if you listen to the dev commentary and the interviews they've done about Fallen Order, they had to fight to use Jedi.
Yeah.
Like Lucasfilm didn't want to give them Jedi.
Right.
They're like, you have to earn the right to have Jedi in your game, and they're like, fuck you.
Yeah, but reportedly, that was the big reason why they weren't really over the moon about Project Ragtag.
Well, because there's a point at which I think Lucasfilm realized, like, oh, the reason people are in for these things is Jedi.
It's because of the Jedi. Yeah.
Like, you got to have lightsabers. I mean, it feels stupid, maybe, but Jedi are one of the main things that makes Star Wars stand out and makes it unique. Is the fact that the Force is here,
and they fight with laser swords.
And even if they're not Jedi, really Jedi and Sith, you got to put some Force stuff in there. You got to do something. Even the Mandalorian having. Baby Yoda, having Grogu in there, keeps you grounded in the idea of the Force and the Jedi stuff, and it keeps
absolutely.
You can do all this, you're doing basically all the same sort of rough and ready ragtag stuff in the underworld scenarios as as probably what Amy Hennig's game was, but you've got that little connection there that keeps it Star Wars, and that and early on, from what Respawn's developers say, Lucasfilm wasn't really allowing you to do that in the game projects. Even the Jedi stuff in Battlefront's pretty limited.
Do you think Amy, with her next game, do you think it's just going to be Project Ragtag?
I think there's a decent chance you could do that. Yeah.
I mean,
you could. I think you do with that is I think you change it up, and instead of making it a Han Solo game, make it a Mandalorian game. What
are the legalities of that? As far as your scenario,
nothing. Lucasfilm owns it.
Oh right. EA doesn't even own that stuff.
EA doesn't own any. That's work for hire.
So she could conceivably.
You could just redo that. I mean, they wouldn't
because make
all that shit's stuck in the Frostbite engine, but they could definitely use the same concept. Yeah.
The same storyline, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I don't think you make a solo game even now, but I think you could adapt probably the gameplay ideas, because it looked like just Uncharted. It sounded like Uncharted in Star Wars. You could adapt that into like a bounty hunter thing, or a Boba Fett thing, or a Mandalorian thing.
Do you think it's smart for her to make that game?
I mean, I do think it's smart to do what you know best, and she's, Uncharted has, she made two really good Uncharted games, and then 3. And
3 was still good.
3 was good, but it wasn't on the same level, I don't think. And there are some rumors about conflict on that one with Druckmann.
Oh yeah,
and all that. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that was the beginning of the end.
That was the beginning of the alpha dogging of Naughty Dog, basically. But no, I think that's for sure kind of either that or like, I don't know, have her make a Soul Reaver kind of thing in Star Wars. I'd go for that. I mean, Soul Reaver is not too far off a Jedi idea.
No, you're right.
In and of itself,
her strength to me is storytelling
for sure
in games, figuring out how to tell a compelling story in a video.
And I would really like to see her take on. I'm sure her take on like the underworld stuff would be good, but I'm much more interested in her take on the more mystical Force stuff. Mm-hmm. I think that's where she shines. I can see why you'd want, especially with a company with as little vision as EA, being like, well, you made these games about what is basically a mix of Han Solo and Indiana Jones, so we're going to have you do like a smuggler game.
Yeah.
But I think it would be more. I'm hoping that Skydance maybe said, what do you want to do? Because I'm sure Amy Hennig has more than one Star Wars story bouncing around.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
I mean, she's been a fan like us for decades. Yeah.
So hopefully they're just like, what do you want to do? What do you think would be an interesting story to tell in the Star Wars universe? And I have no doubt that Amy Hennig has a good answer for that.
Yeah. Do you think either the Star Wars or Marvel game will suffer because of the other?
No. I don't think so.
Seems like a blot on the plate for a new studio.
Yeah, but I think Skydance has the money to staff it up properly. Mm-hmm. So if Insomniac can do Spider-Man and Ratchet at the same time. And
Insomniac's been around for a long time, man.
So is Amy.
Yeah, but it's just one person, man. Like,
yeah, but she knows how to run a show.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about it, but
it's okay. These games aren't coming out for 5 years.
That was my next question. So. When do you think either one of these games is coming out? Yeah, Marvel, I'd say 4 years. Star Wars 5 or 6.
Yeah, are the other way around? Like,
yeah,
who knows?
Well, they had already been working on Marvel. Star Wars came along later, so I just assumed it'll come out first. But who knows? There's really no way to know. A lot of it will depend on when is this movie coming out, and do we need something shorter programming? They don't
seem to do that too much anymore. Like, there's not a lot of synergy anymore with stuff like that.
Not as much as there used to be. That's for sure.
Otherwise, I mean, I guess Guardians technically was sort of close to where the Guardians 3 was supposed to come out.
Yeah.
Well, Guardians 3 was supposed to be last year.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too far up. It still was like 5 months away.
How often does that happen where the game gets done in time and the movie does not?
Yeah, well, also had nothing to do with the movie. Beyond the cast, beyond the character lineup.
But that's been a smart change. I mean, because it used to be there would be a game to accompany a lot of movies that launched on the same weekend, and it would follow the plot of the movie, and it's just like, why? Mm-hmm. Like, and they were terrible. THQ was the king of that crap.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and every once in a while it's fun when you got the weird exception like Wolverine Origins, which because the movie got delayed a year, Raven got to just polish it for a year.
Yeah, and it came out
really good.
Pretty good, yeah. Probably the best X-Men game at that point for a long time.
Still the best X-Men game.
It may be. That's true. It might be.
Unless you want to count like X-Men versus Street Fighter or something. It's not the same thing.
Yep.
Certainly it's the best God of War clone.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see that template, the Uncharted template, applied to Star Wars and Marvel. I think it'll work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason it wouldn't if you're doing a blaster-centric thing.
But I do hope that the gameplay evolves beyond what we've received in Uncharted at this point. Uncharted 4 didn't take as many strides in that direction as I had hoped it would. It still very much felt like an Uncharted game from the PS3 era, but
she didn't make that.
Right. So. But I hope that because she's not really a gameplay person per se, I hope that she doesn't get to a place with these games where she's like, well, that's as good as Uncharted's gameplay was, and that's good enough.
I mean, I think Skydance would keep an eye on that too, because this is their foray into this too.
Yeah.
And they have a reputation in the film industry to kind of carry over.
Mm-hmm.
They do tend to do pretty big and prestige-y things. So I'm sure they want to do something that is on par with kind of what Naughty Dog does. We'll see if they're able to pull it off. But
are you confident that these games are going to turn out well?
Mostly, I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Amy knows what she's doing. Skydance has the money to keep it going, and like Marvel and certainly Lucasfilm seem to have woken up and realized that, like, oh, we need to let people just make their stuff.
Yeah.
Lucasfilm in particular took a long time to realize. Marvel, I am always a little surprised at how weak Marvel's kind of real synergy and cash in on the MCU has been outside of like kind of basic merch.
Yeah.
Like it's real hard to find like action figures for these movies at the right time because they ship the Legends stuff in such small numbers. Like games don't come out to support anything. Like there's no timing for any of that. Like you could really do, the only thing that happens with that is like events that come up in like the Marvel Puzzle Quest, the Marvel Contest of Champions, like that stupid mobile fighting game. Like you'll get like there's everything's Moon Knight right now in those games.
Yeah.
But it's just weird that like there's nothing bigger than that. There's like even there's not even really Lego games. They did that one Marvel's Avengers MCU Lego game and like nothing else again.
It is
like,
pretty shocking.
Like
because normally there's too much of that crap.
Yeah,
like, they just
haven't.
It's like gross almost.
They haven't messed with it. They even they haven't even made a Marvel vs. Capcom since that Infinite Disaster.
Yeah.
It just feels like there's a lot of fertile ground there, and they're not. I know that they obviously they made the Avengers game and Guardians, but like. I don't know. It just
there should be more.
It's sort of like the same Star Wars problem, where it's just like we got 4 games in 10 years,
and I don't want it to be oversaturated. We're getting like 3 or 4 games a year, but come on.
But at the same time, like I saw an argument about that with because now they're announcing all these Star Wars games that are because now that Lucasfilm has sort of reestablished LucasArts internally, so now they just have like a little group that handles licensing out the brand to the developers they think are appropriate for what they want to make, and. So now, we got 4 Star Wars games in the space of 10 years from EA, and 2 of those were the same game. 2 of those were Battlefront.
Yeah.
And now there's like 9 in the pipeline, and people are like, "Oh my God, there's too many Star Wars games." I get first off, they're coming out like 4 to 7 years across all these. Yeah. Second. That used to be LucasArts' thing.
That's
like
how it was.
Get like 3 or 4 Star Wars games a year, but the trick was they were all different things. Like there was a racing game and an RPG and a real-time strategy game and action game.
You got to remember, Matt, though, that
like
there's just less games being released now.
That's true. Yeah.
In general, like drastically so.
But the Star Wars model used to be. What's popular in gaming right now? Okay, make a Star Wars of that. Yeah. That's how Dark Forces is just Doom hosed down in Star Wars juice.
Like, why isn't there like a match 3 puzzle game for Avengers? Like, why?
I mean, there is Puzzle Quest.
Oh, there is? There's a Puzzle Quest for...
It's not MCU, but it is Marvel.
But why isn't there one? Like, why isn't...
But there is, because they follow all the MCU stuff. It's close enough. It's kind of close. Yeah, anything that happens, any movie that comes out is going to have... Like, Doctor Strange and all the multiverse stuff is going to be in that soon.
Gotcha. Okay.
Same with the Contest of Champions thing. Like, they're going to get skins from all the... that's how they synergize that. But in terms of, like, full-scale console stuff, doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's very weird.
Let's see what Chad has to say about Amy Hennig getting Star Wars back, if anything. I think you guys are all talking amongst yourselves. Remember that Wolverine game? It was awesome. It was pretty awesome.
It was good.
Yeah. Pleasantly surprised. 3 was Shane's game of the year. I remember that GT TV episode. Oh, Uncharted 3. Yeah. The year it came out, it was my game of the year. Lots of positive stuff about Clone Wars. Not a surprise there. People saying Rise of Skywalker was fun.
Nah.
Barry Lomax, Fallen Order was pretty good. I think it was kind of janky, but maybe that's me. Nah, I don't remember it being too janky. I remember the combat being more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
though.
the combat was. I mean, it's not on par with Dark Souls. It's sloppier than that, but it's good. It works.
Yeah, I didn't really have any problems with it. So
and certainly when I went back and played it a second time, and I understood how everything worked. Like I was able to. I think I got through the first 2 worlds. First 2 planets without being hit. Yeah, like it's like okay, I get it now. There's definitely an element of being able to master that combat.
It is a little Souls-ish.
Yeah,
it's not like your typical Star Wars game where you just mash the buttons and get through the game.
No, you got to. It's the best lightsaber combat ever done in a game. And anyone who says, what was it, Jedi?
Which one? Force
Jedi
Unleashed?
Outcast?
Oh.
No, fuck that game.
Force Unleashed, another.
Force Unleashed is terrible.
Yep.
In terms of that.
Someone asked in chat if anyone likes it.
It's Force Unleashed is good spectacle, but the lightsaber combat is garbage. It's like hitting them with a foam bat.
Yeah.
Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy at the very least acknowledge how deadly the lightsaber is. But Jedi Outcast combat is the most like haphazard, waggly bullshit there's people that call that good, and I don't understand what the hell they're talking about. Like that, all of that looks ridiculous. It always looked ridiculous to me. It's just as good as you can do in the Quake 3 engine, but like, what a terrible, terrible combat system in terms of simulating what lightsaber combat is. I guess it's fine as far as like whacking a sword at somebody, but that was never acceptable to me.
Don't forget, Fallen Order 2 is on the way. Respawn's working on it. So
should be next year, I would think.
I would think we'll get to see it this year at some point.
That'd be nice.
Although now that EA is not doing a E3 thing, so who knows?
At least I'd say we probably get a teaser trailer at some point this year.
Yep. Okay, maybe the Game Awards or something, we'll see it. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Square Enix and Square Enix's crazy president, Yosuke Matsuda. Matt, this guy is a lunatic. Despite the fact that every gamer, and I hate to use that word, every player has rejected the NFT and said they want nothing to do with it. He keeps pushing the NFT. Mm-hmm. He thinks that NFTs are still the way of the future, the blockchain. He thinks that
NFT stuff is hilarious.
He thinks that fans are going to build his expansion packs for him, and he's going to pay them with NFTs and all this crazy stuff.
You see the weird thing going on with NFTs in the Transformers community?
No.
There's like this 11-year-old boy who draws these terrible child drawings of Transformers, and this site makes NFTs out of them. And if you look at them, they are clearly an adult drawing something they think a child would draw.
Oh, really?
It's all bullshit. It's top to bottom.
Well, Yosuke Matsuda does not agree with you, Matt, me. He believes that it's the wave of the future. And also this week, he has been on a...
Well, when you're at the top of the pyramid scheme, you definitely want everyone else to believe that the pyramid scheme is viable.
Right.
So...
Well, he has been on a media tour lately. He's just doing interview after interview, and every one of them...
It's very weird because you have nothing to promote, dude.
Well, maybe that's the problem. Maybe he's trying to gin up interest.
There's nothing out. What's coming out?
Nothing, really. I mean, Final Fantasy Origin, Stranger in Paradise, that just came out. Yeah, and that game debuted at 10th.
Yeah, that came and went,
in a month.
Didn't
it did not do well at all. It also tanked. So anyway, this week he talked to another outlet, and I think it was Yahoo Japan, and he said that Japanese developers should not make Western games. The Japanese developers should make the games that they want to make for their culture, and they should not try to create games that they believe will do well in the West. Matt, do you agree with this?
You say that again? I don't understand what he's saying.
He's saying that Japanese development teams should not be creating games intentionally to sell well and do well in the West. That they should just make the games that they want to make, that they have been making all along, that do, or at least used to, do well in the Japanese market, and they should not be trying to make these games that are Westernized. And, okay, then why did you give the green light to Forspoken? Because this is exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's he's saying, we shouldn't have made Forspoken.
I mean, I guess if you're talking about Babylon's Fall, I can get behind it.
That's true. That's a good point, actually.
But also, I guess this also explains a little bit about how a lot of even their games that seem like really big productions that are meant for worldwide success tend to feel really weirdly Japanese in a bad way,
Mm-hmm.
Like the Kingdom Hearts voice acting and convoluted storytelling, or the constant anime grunting in Final Fantasy VII Remake. There is a weird recalcitrance on their part to just dropping the kind of the anime bullshit and just making a game for the whole world. Mm-hmm. Whereas you don't see that in kind of the stuff they would publish from Crystal Dynamics.
Yeah,
or IDOS Montreal or whatever. You don't. They did not force Lara Croft to anime grunt.
No,
I can't help but notice.
Yeah,
and that did pretty well too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but not good enough, Matt.
Not good enough. No. So on one hand, I kind of get what he's saying in terms of forcing sort of this Western appeal onto a form of game that really only works in sort of a JRPG format. I guess if you're talking about a Babylon's Fall style thing, but if Japanese developers aren't making stuff for at least partially a Western audience, who are they making them for? Because the Japanese market has essentially collapsed.
There is no market.
So what are you doing?
Exactly.
What are you making
this is one of the most asinine comments that a head of a Japanese publisher has ever made, in my opinion. This is exactly what they should be doing. They should be making games that appeal to the West. That's where the market is. And he does say no, I'm not an idiot. Now, obviously, you have to realize there's a whole world out there, and you can't just make things just for Japan. You should be making everything for the whole world.
Yeah. There is no singular country audience anymore.
No, when the best-selling game in Japan last year sold 2.3 million copies, that's all the evidence you need to know.
At this point, you should be making games for the whole world and trying to figure out how to get your stuff into China.
Yeah.
That's your focus as an international corporation.
I mean, I don't understand. Is he really concerned about creating the games that you spoke about with the grunting and the awkward pauses?
I don't know what he's talking about because Square doesn't really make those games anymore.
I mean, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin was one.
Sort of, but like there's clearly trying to appeal to the West with the characters, and I mean they're not succeeding, but like you can see what they're going for there.
I mean, I agree with you. I think that game is another game that they made.
Kingdom Hearts is only supposed to be popular in Japan, dude. Like it's like what are you doing there?
Like I think Final Fantasy Origin is an example of what he's talking about. I do think that was a Japanese team, in this case Team Ninja, trying to make a game that would appeal to the West, and it just was awkward and weird and stilted and a bunch of other adjectives that I can come up with that aren't flattering. But that doesn't mean because your team failed at doing that you should not continue to strive to achieve that.
Like, why can't you do something like From does?
Right.
Like, From pulls that off on a regular basis. Like, none of From's games have that weird made in Japan stigma to them.
But Matt, the reason it is because From's games do not include the elements that flag those games in that way.
Right.
They're not,
and like when he
there's
says,
not a lot of dialogue, there's not a lot of cinematics.
But when he talks about like, oh, we're gonna, we gotta make, it's like, so what? You think like everybody should just be making Tales of games?
Right. Like,
because even Tales of Arise was like very Western folk. They toned a lot of that stuff down.
Even those games are starting to head that
because that's
direction.
where the market is.
Because you have to.
That's where the audience is.
You have to if you want to survive at this point. This is literally, I cannot believe this guy still has a job.
Kind of explains a few things about
It
Square.
does explain a lot of things about him. Like, I even would argue that Final Fantasy 15 was Square Enix trying to make a game for the Western market. It failed miserably on that front.
I guess you can call that trying.
But I think that was one of their. But I think that was one of their first steps towards doing that. Is they're like, okay, we got this. What is?
Yeah, I mean, in the sense that you can just see how like much they didn't get it.
Right.
Like it's just
they
astounding.
They had no clue how to do it, but they're like, hey, American films, road trips. That's a big theme.
Yeah, road trips, Stand By Me, gas stations. Like it's.
Seriously though, like.
Yeah.
I think they looked at the Western market. They're like, this is what they want, and they failed miserably. But still, I think that that's what they believed that we wanted is what Final Fantasy 15 was and became. And
well, Final Fantasy 15 clearly takes place in like a weird form of America. Like it's an American set game when you get down to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like it was set in America. Was it not? I mean, it's called some fantasy land, whatever.
It's some fantasy, whatever. But I mean, it's clearly
like the gas stations and everything.
Route 66.
Straight out, right? Exactly.
It's some kind of like.
That's exactly what it was. Route 66. Yep. And I don't know, these Japanese publishers, they need to figure it the F out, Matt, or they're going to be gone. You can't make games for the Japanese market anymore. You can't do it. Like you should started doing this a decade ago when you saw where this was all going. Now, if you want to keep making games like that for mobile, sure. There's still a market for that in Japan. But if you want to continue to make console games that are going to sell to the mainstream, you have to. You absolutely have to start making games for the West. That's all there is to it. That's where all the money is. That's where all the market is. I don't know what this guy's on. Like, I feel like every time he does an interview, he's on like mushrooms or something because he just says the most crazy crap. Like, how could you have faith in this guy if you're a shareholder of Square Enix and he's going out there saying stuff like this and you're watching your sales for your domestic games, console games, just tank over and over again, and they're not doing all that well in the US anymore either? What were the final sales figures for Final Fantasy VII Remake? Now, keeping in mind that was a game that people had asked for what, 20 years or something like that? Not quite that long, but for a long flipping time, people were asking for that game and they finally got it. Like, did that sell over 10 million? I think it did.
I would think so.
Yeah. But that's an anomaly. Square Enix doesn't have other games that it can remake that people have been asking for.
The last, it looks like the last sales numbers they provided was that it sold 3.5 million global unit sales in its opening weekend and crossed the 5 million mark in early 2021. I have to assume they're creeping up on 10 million by now with all the sales.
Yeah, I would think so. In chat, they're saying more than 5 million copies. It has to be way more than that.
the 5 million number is from early 2021, so it has to be substantial. And considering some of the deep discount sales on that, like, and then plus the sales that went along with what is the Intergrade or whatever, like that's got to
Matt, that's still way less than I thought, though.
It's not amazing, but like 5 million is a solid hit, I think. Unless you're
in Japan it is.
Unless you're talking about something that costs 250 million. I mean, I don't know if you can count a budget for this game because it was in development so long, but like, and it's still kind of in development considering there's more parts to go.
Now, people are saying in the chat that's just part 1. It was still a full game. It doesn't matter how many parts there are. That's like
they don't want you to know it's part 1. It doesn't say that anywhere on the cover.
I mean, that's like saying God of War Ragnarok is part 2 of God of War. Like they're full games. Like just because they're saying it's part 1, that has
still got to sell.
It has nothing to do with it.
If Final Fantasy Remake sold 900,000 copies, you wouldn't be getting Final Fantasy Remake Part 2.
No, you definitely would not. It matters how well these sell. They're saying it was also on PlayStation Plus. That's a good point. Nolan Helrick says it doesn't deserve 5 million.
No, it doesn't.
Cinetyke is asking, any insight into why Japanese gaming market has gone so low in the past years? Because their games are just weird anymore. They're not mainstream.
Yeah, and like the ones that you can do, Grasshopper Interactive
but their games don't sell either.
They don't sell either, but they at least like embrace it and they're an interesting angle on things. Whereas like the stuff Square makes is just like embarrassing.
Yeah, and here's the thing: back in the Super Nintendo era, the NES era, this stuff was mainstream.
Yeah,
because they were all the games we were getting when we were kids. This is what video games were. Times have changed.
Right, and I will maintain, as I've said before, when this stuff was just little sprite characters bouncing around with text that you didn't have to worry about people delivering as voice acting, and all the emotion was conveyed through really some of the best soundtracks ever put to games, even by today's standards, like, it worked.
Yeah.
But Square has never evolved past that.
No.
They are still trying to recreate that method of telling a story in modern 3D cinematic stuff, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. It's I'm just saying right now, Square Enix, they need to find a new leader because this guy, he has no clue what's going on in the modern market.
They need to stop giving so much writing jobs to Nomura. Like,
that would help.
There's job one.
Yeah,
like, he takes too long and it's never worth it.
And this is a case where otaku worshiping a specific developer is to the detriment of the actual video games.
Like, I'll rip on Kojima all day, but at least like I can play a Kojima game and understand why he did what he did and what he's trying to get at, even if I think it's poorly executed or dumb. Yeah. But like, I've never played a Kojima game and been like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
like,
what is this?
I've never like, I don't understand what you're doing any of this for. I see what he's trying to do in Death Stranding. I don't think it's particularly interesting or useful to me, but it's not like I look at Death Stranding and be like, oh my God, what the hell were you thinking with this? I see what he's thinking. With like everything like Nomura does, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me why you would make this decision this way, or why this game would work this way, or why you think this was the way to go with this. It's bizarre. It's constant.
The best thing Square Enix could do is bring some of the people from studios like Crystal Dynamics into their studios in Japan and let them call the shots. Mm-hmm. And be like, no. What you guys have been doing isn't working anymore.
Yeah, you do the combat system and the gameplay systems, and let us worry about the presentation and all that.
Right.
Like, give us an outline of what the story needs to be, and we will make it something that is not rooted in some kind of 30-year-old anime
absurdity
thing.
Yeah, so it's shocking to hear stuff like this from a prominent Japanese games executive.
But I wonder how it feels to hear that if you're like at Crystal Dynamics or something right now. You're just like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Or you're Montreal, where it's just like you just went through all this shit with like Guardians was a disappointment. It's like, whose fault is that?
Right.
Like, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're like, what?
Yeah. And I guarantee you, these games from Square Enix Japan, I bet you they get double the marketing budget of these games that are made by their Western studios. I would not be shocked at all if that were the case.
Yeah, which in some look, you're talking about like Final Fantasy VII Remake or Kingdom Hearts, okay.
Yeah.
But like Stranger Paradise, like, how do you not know that's a dog the instant you see it?
Yeah. They need more games like Forspoken, not less.
Yeah. Forspoken, I think, is very easy to mistake for a Sony game, for a Sony exclusive.
Yeah, it looks like a Sony. It looks like a Western game.
It does.
This is what Square Enix should be doing. So if they keep going down that path, I believe they'll have a pathway to success. Mm-hmm. But if they do what their president says,
Yeah,
They're doomed.
Keep leveraging Crystal Dynamics and EA, Eidos Montreal and
Yeah.
whoever else you got.
Yeah, any of the talented Western developers you have, let them put their hands in whatever the F they want to put their hands in. That's how you're successful in the future as a Japanese publisher. I know that may crush some people who love Japanese games, but that is just the effing truth.
And note that the one the Japanese developer that has responded to him and said nope is the guy who's running Final Fantasy 14. Like he said, like, we are not putting NFTs in Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah,
like they are not doing that. And it's like, and that's the only place that they've figured out how to do this in.
Yeah.
Like
You'd have to be an idiot to mess with Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 14 is not designed to target the Japanese market.
No.
The Final Fantasy 14 is the most universal Final Fantasy they've made probably since 10.
Yeah.
Like it's great, or maybe since 12. Like 12 is probably the most Western friendly Final Fantasy in the last 10 installments or something.
Yeah.
But like, like 14 figured, and 14 like. I haven't actually gotten to any of the expansion content, but like I've seen some of the scenes, and you saw like some of the reactions of the people who were the writer, the woman who wrote the Shadowbringers and stuff. Like that stuff doesn't play like bad anime.
Yeah.
Like, so what's the deal? Like, you got people in there that know how to do it.
Yeah.
That aren't even Western developers. Like, they can just do it. So why don't you leverage that?
Let them do it. Yep.
Very
Promote the right people, and so. There you go. That's the latest on Square Enix and really, in general, just Japanese game development in a nutshell. They better figure it out or they're going to be irrelevant.
I mean,
they already are irrelevant.
I mean, Square feels very archaic in a way that almost no other company over there does. To me.
Or just in general in the games industry feels like anymore. Like, most publishers and developers have figured it out.
It's so, like, it feels like almost anyone else, except maybe Ubisoft, at this point would have just put Final Fantasy to bed.
Yeah.
And called it a day.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess they kind of, I mean, Final Fantasy 16 still threatens to loom over the horizon periodically.
Maybe.
But really all they're doing now is Final Fantasy 14 and supposedly remaking all of 7 and putting out pixel remakes.
Yeah.
And that's it. And really lazy remasters of non-Final Fantasy
Or
RPGs.
sloughing off these spin-offs like Team Ninja and whatnot, which...
Meanwhile, you've got stuff like Xenoblade Chronicles, which is way more like what I would expect a modern Square game to be. Yeah. But they're not making it. They're, that's Monolith, who used to do Square games.
Yep. And then Nintendo snatched them up. Yep.
Because Nintendo's like, you guys can do things.
Yeah.
You come with us.
Yeah, that we can't do.
Yeah.
And which is what Square Enix should be recognizing right now.
And Monolith had a big hand in Breath of the Wild and helping with that world.
That's right. Yeah.
One of the most universally appealing games worldwide that anyone has made in the last 15 years. Yeah. By a Japanese developer, staffed mostly by old guys who've been there since the 80s.
And they let Monolith slip through their fingers. Yeah.
Like, what the heck? It's Square's...
Well, that's why Nintendo's Nintendo.
Exactly. Square has a continual feeling of a lack of vision to me. And, like, comments like this makes me like, oh. Well,
that explains a lot.
If this is the prevailing wisdom of the people making the decisions at the top, maybe that's not so confusing anymore.
It adds up. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to move on. We're going to talk next about ads in free-to-play games. Matt, have you heard this news? So about a week and a half ago, Xbox announced that it was looking into running ads in free-to-play console games. And Microsoft actually is doing it about as good as you could do it in that the developer or the publisher will make all the money from the ads. Microsoft isn't even taking a cut, at least initially. It said it just wants to establish its ad network, get it up and running as a proof of concept before it decides what to do over the long term. Go 5 days later, PlayStation announces that it's now looking into running ads in free-to-play games on free-to-play PlayStation games, except it does not go that extra step and say that it's not taking a cut of the ad revenue. It's just like, yeah, we're looking at running ads in free-to-play games. How do you feel about this, Matt?
Could not possibly care less.
You don't think it matters at all?
It doesn't matter to me because
Do you not play any free-to-play games?
No.
Really?
I don't think so.
Yeah, if you don't play Apex Legends, Warzone, a lot of these like this, Knockout City from EA.
I forgot this existed.
Yeah, the dodgeball game, which actually is pretty good. How do you feel about ads running in mobile games? Do you play any mobile games that have them?
Some. Like, they're annoying, but...
Are they worth it to be able to play the game for free?
Not usually. But I don't think... there aren't many mobile games I think are worth playing anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely in that camp. I don't play any mobile games, really. In fact, I just deleted the last one I had on my phone off of my phone because Call of Duty Mobile had gotten to like 4 gigs or whatever. I was like, okay, time to delete you because you're sucking up too much space.
Yeah, I mean, I should delete more of them. There's apps on this thing I haven't opened in years.
Me too, yeah. I deleted Pokemon Go not that long ago, too. I was like, oh, I can give up on that. I kept thinking, no, I'll go back and play this someday, and it just kept not happening.
Yeah, it's Gundam Battle, the Gunplay mobile, like the battler thing. I haven't played that since December 2019.
Oh, wow.
It's still sitting here.
3 years. Well, almost 2.5 years. But, yeah probably time to get rid of it.
Puzzle Quest, Knighthood.
You have lots of games on your phone. Mine are all pretty much all gone now because I just don't play them.
You Must Build a Boat. That's fun.
Oh. I have never experienced ads in a game. I've never played a mobile game that had ads. How exactly do they work? Do they interrupt your play to show you an ad?
No, usually they happen between play session things. So
between levels when it's loading the next level?
If it's a level based thing, like you'll have to watch an ad to keep going, or a lot of times it's something where it's like, you know, it's a thing where you spend energy to do a level, to play a section of the game or to do something, and it'll be like, do you want to watch an ad for 5 energy? Mm-hmm. And so you sit through a 15-second ad to get 5 energy instead of waiting like an hour for it to build up.
Oh,
stuff like that.
That seems kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like,
cool maybe.
The big problem. I haven't played anything like that for a long time, but the big problem with it is that, like, at a certain point, you just I'm seeing the same ad 40 times, and it's just they change them over usually like every week. Mm-hmm. But like when I would play like Angry Birds Transformers, you just see the same ad over and over and over and over again, and finally I'd pay the $1 to not see the ads anymore, mm-hmm. and like that's how they get you, because it's like, you know, $1 is not that much to me, but if you got 15 million downloads and maybe a third of those people pay $1 to not see ads anymore, you just made millions of dollars off of nothing, off of serving less content to people.
So that's a case where the revenue model is affecting the design of the game. They're reverse engineering the design of the game to make the revenue model more
to make spaces
effective.
For that. Yeah,
that to me is where it would be bad.
Mm-hmm.
When you're allowing that revenue model to affect how the game is actually played and designed, that to me what seems like where it would draw the line.
I mean, that's mobile games in a nutshell.
Yeah,
really.
But I mean, I draw the line with free-to-play anyway because it's been proven over and over again, if you make a great free-to-play game, you can make plenty of money. There's Riot Games right down the street, Matt. It has an entire campus in West Los Angeles built on a single free-to-play game. Think about that. Mm-hmm. It has a campus. They own the whole building that G4 used to be housed in, and that's just like their schluffy, like, extra office where they have, like, esports tournaments.
Yeah.
Then across the street, they have this brand new palace that they built. It's all from a free-to-play game. So I struggle to see where there's any excuse, really, for a free-to-play game to have ads in it, unless the free-to-play game just sucks.
I mean, I think because the free-to-play game ads are faster. Like, you know, Riot got to that point by building up to critical mass over years, and you know, when you're launching one of these games, you want to be able to just like get the deals and get the, you know, all those ads are paying you, you know, to put those ads in the game.
Of course, yeah.
So like, yeah, I get it to some degree, but it's just like the problem is like most of the free-to-play stuff is just not fun. Like, especially the mobile stuff is not they're not good games.
Yeah.
I early on, a lot of the games I have in here I haven't opened forever are games that are not free to play that I paid like $4 or whatever for, and they're just full games that you can play whenever you want, and you don't have to deal with that. And there are a couple that I think I pay. Like Angry Birds, Transformers, I finally just paid the thing to get rid of the ads, and I just was able to play it normally. But I haven't opened that game in years either.
Yeah.
So they don't hold my attention long enough for the ads to really bother me most of the time. Whereas like in console, I mean, I don't know, like. Trying to think of a free-to-play console game I'd care about playing to the point that, I mean, I don't know. And I guess to some degree, if you're going to force that, like, as long as you have, like, a cheap option to get rid of the ads forever, I'm probably going to do that.
Like, what do you think will happen if, as we're seeing right now, Call of Duty Warzone puts ads in, or Apex Legends puts ads in the game?
I mean, I think you would probably just be watching an ad while you wait for the next match to load up.
Yeah. Are you okay with that?
I mean, what else are you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Because some people freaked out over
you don't
the
waste
ads
my time if it's
that
just
were
like,
in NBA 2K during the loading screens.
Yeah.
People got angry over that.
I mean, I don't care about that. Also, I don't really see advertisement stuff much. You know what I mean? I don't. Growing up, I grew, Gen X kind of grew up just ignoring media ads for things. Like, it's like we were very, at least I was, we're taught to be very media savvy and understand when you're being advertised to, because every fucking cartoon we ever grew up watching wanted to sell us toys. And it was, important for our parents to sort of educate us, and like, that's what they're trying to do to you here. And so, like, to me, like, if I, people are advertising things, I mean, I know people that just like hate seeing billboards on the freeway, or like,
that's a little extreme.
Ads on the corners of websites or something. I'm like, there's ads on the corners of the website? Like, I don't even see
My brain has learned to delete them.
Yeah.
I don't even see them.
Blank spaces to my brain. I don't see advertisement. Because I don't care. Like, I know what I want. I know what I'm interested in. I'm not... I mean, if I notice the ad, like, there's a problem. Like, when if I need to have to see that Top Gun Maverick trailer one more goddamn time... Veritas, and I want to see that movie. So.
I don't remember this, but Veritas says Street Fighter V had ads, and it was a $60 game.
Oh, I vaguely remember that.
I don't remember that for some reason.
There was something. I don't think I played it enough to see that, but yeah, there was something like that. I remember. Yeah.
And he says, what if Street Fighter 6 is free to play with ads?
I mean, Street Fighter 5 is not a template for anything. let's be honest. Like you want to see how to do everything wrong. Street Fighter 5's launch is pretty much that. Street Fighter 6 free to maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that model worked tremendously well for them, but it depends how they think what they think they can get away with, really. Like, I mean, you're kind of caught between that, aren't you? It's like, because they're clearly going to do some kind of, in-game purchase, microtransaction, like season pass thing with that, because that's just how they roll now, especially with the big games. And like,
if you think about it,
can you justify $60 for that?
Yeah.
And
I don't think you could still sell it for $60. You'd have to. So, but here's the thing:
they will try.
If you're Capcom and you're like, we can get 1/8 of a penny per match, does that work out?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, you mean like slapping like a banner ad on a load screen for a versus thing? Like, maybe.
And generally, you get about 1/8 of a penny for each one of those ads.
Yeah.
Online,
especially if you're talking about like not just online, but also talking about like tournaments and
right.
And
it adds up.
Things like that's it. Yeah.
It's possible. Would you be okay with that?
As long as it didn't spend... Here's the thing. If you're just going to throw up a logo on something I'd have to watch or sit through anyway, I'm fine with that. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the load times aren't longer,
if you're not
because
wasting
they want
my time,
you to be exposed.
If I don't have to sit through a separate ad, if I don't have to sit through, like, another thing, that's fine. Like, I didn't care that, like, whatever it was at Skate 3 that had the streaming billboards and stuff in it.
Oh, yeah.
And when it launched, it was just like 5,000 plain white billboards for the Simpsons movie.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that was dumb because everything was the same ad, and it was the most boring, like, picture. Because it was
I think that's the problem. It's always going to be the problem is inventory.
Yeah,
You're never going to have enough varied
of
inventory.
And that was the worst one to choose anyway, because the Simpsons movie ad was just a blank white space with the logo on it.
Yeah.
Like, if you were able to populate it with a bunch of different things and a bunch of different colored things and make it look like a real world that had all those billboards on it, that would be different.
Ad frequency is the issue, because like I listen to podcasts on this app called Odyssey, and it's basically what it does is it just takes all the radio stations from around the country and it takes their shows and it turns them into podcasts. And I have heard this same ad so many times, I've memorized the ad. And to me, that's the problem with the ads in general, is that they become so repetitive that they become a deterrent. And honestly, if a product that is surrounded by stuff like that, it does change my opinion of the product over time.
So, and I mean, a good ad does get in your head and sits there. I mean, we can probably both sing ad jingles from when we were 5.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
but those didn't get on our heads because we saw them thousands of times, but we saw them often enough that something catchy stuck.
1877 cars for kids.
I mean, that is intentionally written to be annoying.
Cars for kids. Yep, but you hear it once and you remember it.
I mean, you
remember that it sucks.
The doorbell of my house is like a 2-tone thing. It's like dung dung, and like and it's the exact same tone as the end of the NBC thing. Like, and every time someone rings the doorbell, I'm like NBC. Like it's like that's how they get you.
Yeah,
but like repeating the same like verveless and artless ad over and over again until I've memorized it just because of repetition, that is a different thing, and I can understand why people get angry about that. That's like with the Top Gun trailer. Last time I saw the Top Gun trailer in a theater, like the rest of the I think what was that? What movie was that? That was a couple movies ago, but the whole theater said the trailer along with the dialogue. Like people were just like saying the dialogue because everyone had seen it 14 times in the last month. It was so that's not a positive thing. If you get something stuck in your head, like, oh, it's kind of catchy, maybe I should see that thing. It's like that's one thing, but just showing me the same ad for the same stupid Clash of Clans ripoff,
and they're not gonna find enough advertisers that they're gonna have enough variety of ads, and that is gonna be a problem.
Yeah. And so at a certain point, I think you're doing a disservice to the thing you're advertising.
Exactly. Yep. So I personally believe that there should not be ads in free-to-play console games. I think if your game is good enough and you've mastered the free-to-play model, meaning with cosmetics and other things like that, you can make buku bucks if you do it right. I feel like this is going to be a crutch for the free-to-play games that probably shouldn't be free-to-play in the first place. So we'll see how it goes, but it looks like it's coming to both consoles. And a lot of people, with free-to-play is a big thing now. There's a lot of people that spend the bulk of their time playing free-to-play games, that play, PUBG with most of their gameplay time, or they play Warzone, or they play Apex Legends, or they play something like Knockout City, the dodgeball game that we were using for B-roll there. A lot of people are getting in on these games, League of Legends. So it'll be interesting to see if they start bringing them into these arenas where people aren't used to being exposed to ads while they wait for things to load or whatever, or God forbid, it actually breaks up the gameplay. That's where it's a total deal breaker to me. Where you are waiting for an ad to finish to continue playing the game, that's the total deal breaker for me.
So and you want to slap something up on the load screen that I'm going to have to see anyway? Fine.
Yeah.
If you must.
Yeah. Yep.
But I don't know. I'll probably never see it anyway because I don't play free to play.
Me either.
Because free to play stuff, even when it's like console stuff, is just grindy.
It is.
They want you to get addicted to it. And they want you to grind on it, and they want you to just play it compulsively. And I just don't. I don't do that.
I dropped my one game, League of Legends, that I was like that. I quit playing it over a year ago, and I have not looked back. So
the games I play compulsively are single player experience stuff.
It has actually now been a year that I quit playing League of Legends, and I have not gone back. Pretty amazing. After playing it for a really long time. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about World of Warcraft. The next expansion for World of Warcraft was announced this week. It is called Dragonflight. Matt, when was the last time you played World of Warcraft?
The very beginning of Cataclysm.
Which I believe is coming to vanilla World of Warcraft.
Wow.
That's all coming, it's following the same cycle again with the vanilla, which launched in, 2019, I think? Vanilla did?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That sounds about right.
And now Cataclysm is coming to that.
Yeah, I played most of it in it was Burning Crusade and then Wrath of the Lich King. Was those the first two expansions?
I believe so.
So I think we played the tail end of Burning Crusade and the bulk of Wrath of the Lich King.
And then that was where you stopped?
And then we tried to come back to it when Cataclysm launched. I specifically remember the first night everybody came back for Cataclysm, and it was we were halfway through the night, and everyone was just sort of you want us to just stop? Let's just not do that. And, everyone just didn't care anymore.
Yeah. That happened to me in the first 4 hours of playing World of Warcraft. But this new expansion is mixing things up. It completely revamps the user interface and the talent tree systems with 2 tree branches. You gain talent points with each level up, and then you spend them. Class talent trees feature utility skills for your class. Specialization trees boost your offensive or healing powers. They've also improved the HUD, along with the new crafting and profession system. As always, there's a new playable race called, and I'm going to mispronounce this, called the Drakthir. And there's also a new class called the Evoker. And the two are combined. Evokers are exclusive to the Drakthir, and are also the only class that Drakthir can play. So basically, they're a
it does kind of limit it.
They're a team up deal. They're calling it World of Warcraft's first ever playable race and class combo. It's no, it's just inflexible, pretty much.
I mean, making a bullet point out of a limitation is a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yep. Drakthir Evokers, which is what you might as well call them, because you can't have one without the other. You can freely switch between 2 customizable forms. There is a humanoid visage and a fearsome draconic form to battle foes and overcome obstacles. And then, of course, there's also dragons that you can choose as mounts. And actually, the flight on the dragons is pretty advanced. People can actually shoot you down from the skies. Any of this? Oh, there's a new level cap to 70. There's a new raid, and there are new dungeons. Any of this?
That level cap had to be higher than 70.
That's what I thought too, but that's on the official World of Warcraft website. So I don't know if at some point...
I thought they were at like 90 or
I thought
something.
so too. I thought they had rolled it way back. Maybe they rolled it way back or something, and they're starting over. But the official World of Warcraft website says a new level cap up to 70. I don't know. I know. It seems crazy. Does
Johnny Hurricane says they squished it.
They squished the level cap?
The level cap in the last, I guess the last expansion, they just sort of condensed.
So they did roll it back, according to Erebus Jones. Okay.
Because I remember it going up to like 100 or something at some point.
I thought it had hit 100 like a long time ago. Yeah. So anyways, back to level 70 now. Does any of this appeal to you, Matt?
Nope.
What would it take to get you back to World of Warcraft or really any MMORPG at this point? I mean, you play 14, Final Fantasy 14, right?
Yeah. But 14 is interesting. I mean, I don't play it much. Mm-hmm. The only MMOs I even touch anymore are Final Fantasy 14, SWTOR, and sometimes Secret World if I'm in the mood. Mm-hmm. I would never go back to World of Warcraft. I don't care.
Why? So why would you play Final Fantasy 14, but then say you'd never go back to?
Because Final Fantasy 14 tells an interesting story at times.
You don't think that World of Warcraft could eventually do that?
It never has.
Well, the synopsis for this.
There's a couple of cutscenes they do, but I can just watch those on YouTube. You know, much like Overwatch, it's sort of like, oh, there's some cool CG scenes here, but the game is not that.
Yeah,
you know,
you're right. And in fact, somebody posted something on the site at sifted.net under the trailer for Dragonflight where they said, they need a new engine. Yeah. Like, they can talk all they want about how great their artists are and how they get so much out of these very simple graphics, but the bottom line is the games just don't look that good anymore. Do you think that'll ever happen? Because they already did it once.
Yeah. I don't know.
Would that attract you to the game if they overhauled the graphics again?
I will never play this game again.
There's nothing they could do?
No.
I wonder about people in chat.
The Star Wars game can barely get me to play it.
Yeah.
This generic fantasy crap is not going to...
I mean, I'm never going to play it. That's done and dusted. Like, I tried it when it first started, and I was like, I have never played an MMORPG more than like 7 hours ever in my life. Initially, I tried so many. Like,
I mean, I played this to max level at the time. We did the raids. I feel like I did it.
You've been there. You've done that.
I don't feel like there's anything they can add that's not just a permutation of something I've already done or something that another game doesn't do better.
Vincent asked, do you think Blizzard could make a World of Warcraft 2 and get people to play it? A sequel?
Probably not. Like, I feel like this is like the MMO space is sort of done.
Yeah.
Like, you've got these sort of like legacy successes, but like, Square would be out of their mind to try to do another Final Fantasy game.
Seems like
MMO.
it.
Like 14 is a minor miracle.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft basically has inertia, but they've lost like 60 million subscribers. Like this, they're almost like I said, inertia, and everything else just sort of ekes out a living. Apparently, like SWTOR makes money. SWTOR makes something like half to 750,000 in profit or something every year, which makes it good enough to keep around. Mm-hmm. It's the only ongoing like Legends non-canon thing still in active development or production from the pre-Disney purchase.
Erebus says it's a good podcast game. It's funny how that's turned into like a subgenre.
The
podcast game.
I can see that. But
if I'm going to go through your cycles.
But honestly, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to play Final Fantasy 4, because look, Final Fantasy 14 has some good story stuff in it, but it's not constant. Like, you can certainly turn the sound off for large stretches. And Secret World, you don't need the sound on at all. That's just fun to run.
Some of these MMOs, they're better with the sound off.
A lot of times,
I hate to say it.
SWTOR I wouldn't, because it is actually really story driven, especially the way they've redone it. So like you can literally just run through the story and never touch any of the side stuff. So you're basically just cutscene. Go fight, cutscene. It's basically like playing a BioWare game, which is good. But I haven't actually I haven't gone back and done the last story thing they dropped. Every once in a while I'm amazed that game's 10 years old and like still going.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. So that's a no-go for you on World of Warcraft Dragonflight. Definitely a no-go for me. People are asking how far you got in Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, like halfway through the vanilla, like the Realm Reborn stuff.
Okay.
Like nowhere near the stuff that's supposed to be really good.
Yeah. But you still enjoy what you played.
I liked it a lot more than I thought. I mean, I see what people are saying when they say it's kind of generic, but like, in terms of sense of place and location, like I don't know if I've played an MMO that was better than it. Like running around in the cities and some of the areas like really feel like places. Like, you know, like being in the different, especially the different cities and towns feel like places with a culture and a background. And they're big enough that they feel like you can be lost the first time you get there, and then you kind of learn where everything is, and that's really cool. Like, it's the first time I've really felt like I was in like a world in a Final Fantasy game probably since 12.
Wow.
Like I think it's a very well done game.
Okay.
And you can play most of it solo and not worry about it. And when you do have to do the multiplayer dungeons, you just join a queue and wait for yourself to get dropped in automatically, and they are really easy. So like you just sort of burn through them with the other players, especially because the other players generally already know what they're doing. It's very smooth, very easy, smooth experience. So it's been a good, and the music's really good, which is honestly not a thing I've said about Final Fantasy or MMOs. In very recent times.
Yep. Okay. Well, there you go. That's the latest on World of Warcraft. If you are so inclined. But neither of us are.
No.
So we're going to move on. Next up, we're going to talk about a game that Matt played. Matt actually did play a game this week. Yeah. It's a game called Norco. And I had never heard of this game.
Didn't even have a page.
There's no page on Sifted for Norco at all. It's from Raw Fury as the publisher. Yeah. It is a point-and-click game. And I'm surprised I had not heard of it because it looks awesome. And Matt, it's... Reviews on Steam are like sky high, like highest fan reviews of any game I've seen in a really long time. What's up with it? Why do people love it so much?
Well, it's a very indie game. It is a point-and-click adventure that is a magical, realist, Southern Gothic science fiction story.
Okay.
And it's made by like 5 people. Like it's a very small team. Uses kind of this sort of old school 90s-ish pixel art. And I will say it's got, old school point and click to it, but it's also got like it would not be wrong to say there's Disco Elysium in here.
I can see it already. Yeah.
There's a lot of choices to make. So the premise is you play as a girl named Kay, who grew up in this a real place, this tiny little it's not even a town. It's like a recognized living location in a parish in
I think I've lived
Louisiana
in places like that before.
called Norco. And it's a little place like in real life, like something like 2,900 people live there. And it's the main thing in it is a giant shell refinery. And in this game, it's called Shield Refinery. It's shield oil, not shell oil. But you know what they're talking about. And in real life, it's Norco actually is the name of the place, but Norco just stands for New Orleans Refinery Company. So it's literally
the place where everyone works.
Yeah, it's literally named after the corporation that owns the refinery, that runs the refinery that dominates the area. And this goes into a lot. Like you grew up in this town, and you basically. You always heard the sound of the refinery, and the sound of the refinery grinding was never gone. And you can choose, I couldn't wait to get away from the silence is amazing once I left town, or I could never quite sleep right without it in the background. So you can you choose early on sort of your reactions to things to determine Kay's backstory. So what happens is Kay basically bails out and leaves town and breaks her mother's and her brother's hearts. By disappearing. And this is a future world. This is it's not quite a dystopia, but it's all very corporate owned. There's androids, there's weird apps, there's ways to save your memories on hard drives. It's got a lot of advanced sci-fi Philip K. Dick style stuff in it. And she leaves, and there's shooting wars in the United States. Like people are fighting over resources, and the pirates kind of patrol the rivers and steal shipments of things, and things are not going well. And so she leaves and ends up sort of one of the only mistakes I've seen in this game is at the very beginning when she says that she drifted east, and then when she got to the Rio Grande, she threw her phone in the river. And then continued on to New Mexico, and that's west of Louisiana.
Oops.
That's the only thing I can fault it for there. And then her mother gets cancer and dies, and the story begins with her returning home after that.
Oh, okay.
And sort of dealing with the fallout of that because her mother was...
And the sibling is gone.
No, the sibling's there.
Oh.
The sibling took care of... The brother took care of the mother, but she was dying.
Oh, okay.
And resents you for that.
Oh.
But also was like always kind of a fuck up and got into drugs and weird things. So you're trying to find him through most of the beginning of the game.
Oh, okay.
And then periodically you'll get flashbacks where you play as her mother when she was uncovering this weird conspiracy. Because the mother was like... She lived there her whole life, and she was an historian of the area and knew more about the area than almost anybody else, and had like UFO sighting stuff and got involved in like this conspiracy with the Shield company. And there's questions about whether Shield had her killed. There's questions. There's a thing where like Shield agents basically, not to go Marvel on you, but one of the private detectives is like, oh, I saw these guys go into her house the day after she died and take out a box, and I don't know what was in it. So they wanted something she knew, and as you do the flashbacks, like you'll sort of piece together what she found out and how she found out about it and how freaking weird it is. So like, because this game is very strange. Like the magical realism elements are very prominent.
Well, I think just watching the B-roll, it's really bizarre.
But there's things where like you have to play a little mini game where you drive around and like drive around in a swamp boat and you meet an alligator, and the alligator's like, this fisherman has killed my son and hung him from a tree, and because you used to be my owner when we were in a circus together, and if you kill him and bring me his skull, I will be your dog again. And I'm like, okay. So I went and then you can be like, can you kill the guy, or you go back and kill the gator? So I killed the guy because he's a poacher. Screw him.
Yeah.
And I went back, brought his skull to the gator, and the gator's like, good job, but I will never be your dog again. And the gator ate me. But then it turned out it was a puppet show, so it was okay.
Wow.
It's that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And so it's it's almost like a dream journal at times. Like it's very floaty and reality is very fluid in the game.
Game Manual asked, "Did you pet the cat?"
I did pet the cat.
What does that mean?
There's a cat that appears throughout the game named Crouton. Who I believe,
name for a cat.
Who I believe is a real cat that the lead developer had.
Okay.
And when you first run into the cat, he's in a bookstore, and so there's little interactive sort of quick time things you can do, like where for combat and little test things. So the two ways that happens is like a series of glyphs is shown on the screen, and they flash white in a certain order, and you have to click that in the same order
like
to succeed.
Simon says.
Or there's like circles, and like a big circle will zoom in from the outside of the screen, and as soon as they line up, you have to click it to like match it up. And you get a bunch of the glyph puzzles if you go to pet the cat on the counter of the bookstore, and you keep petting him, and he keeps getting like more and more excited and vibrating. And the bookstore clerk, who's like one of your friends that you knew back in the day, is like, you should stop petting him. If you keep petting the cat, this ridiculous, it basically launches through the roof of the roof of the bookstore, and she won't answer your question anymore because she's mad that you launched the cat through the roof of the bookstore.
After she told you to stop.
After she said not to. But Crouton shows up in numerous places throughout the rest of the game, so it doesn't really it doesn't matter.
Wow. This game sounds insane.
So that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's like very early, and like you run into Lovecraftian god things and crazy people who might be related to you. There's an implication that your mother might be a descendant of Jesus Christ. It deals very strongly with sort of the religious background of the area and the voodoo traditions of things and secret societies and cults, and there's even some QAnon references.
What's this stuff right here with like the faces?
This is a mind grid or something like that. So anytime you find out something new about someone or something, it appears in your mind grid, and you can go in and kind of review all the stuff you know about them, and sort of as you review them, they'll branch out further, and like you can kind of expand through that. So it's like a mind web where you sort of can keep track of all the things you know about the world and all the characters, and it's useful for when you can't figure something out to go and look at that and sort of like refresh yourself. And then sometimes it'll give you like probably aren't direct hints, but like put you on the right path. Other thing you can do is you do have party members. You can ask about things, and a little dot will appear on their portrait if they have something to say, so that's helpful.
Yeah.
There's like stuff with things with apps, and like apps that like you like there's a whole thing where you have to go around to this app and like earn money by completing these tasks, and then you find out that like everyone's doing these tasks and they're doing it for an AI that's named Super Duck, and it's bizarre. It's just, and then you also know someone else named Duck who's an old man who knew your mother, and it just goes around and around and around like that. It's very, I mean, it sounds like I'm telling you a lot about this, but I'm really not.
You're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, it's and a lot of it is kind of like Disco Elysium, sort of discovering what your choices lead to and how your choices determine. There are real choices that are like, you'll say things like, oh, well, then this happened, Yeah, we went to this concert, and somebody was even throwing bottles around, and a fight started, and then your choices are like, I got hit over the eye with a bottle and still have a scar to this day, or I was outside when the fight happened, and I picked that I had a scar, and characters will remark on the scar through the rest of the game. It becomes a plot point at times.
Oh, wow.
So it does actually, you're building Kay's backstory and her attitude towards all the characters and all the people in her life, even how she felt about her mother, by having conversations about things. It's the KOTOR, it's the BioWare method. Before you could import a save in a sequel, sometimes they ask you questions about what happened previously. It's that kind of thing.
So establishing your character.
So you establish sort of what happened and who you are and who everyone else is. You can even, they even do that to like you're making character decisions about other characters you haven't met yet when you're talking about choosing what Kay's reaction to them was back in the day, which is an interesting thing too.
Sounds awesome.
It is. It's very, very good.
I saw on Steam it's only $15.
$15.
And you can play like a demo of the first scenario
demo
or
of the
something?
first act, which is like, the first act is a good, I would say good 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It'll definitely tell you what you need to, it's it gives you through the beginning and the return home and looking for the brother and the first flashback to the mother.
That's a good chunk.
And by the end of it, you will definitely know if this game is for you or not.
Okay. $15 isn't bad anyway.
No, $15 is a steal for $15.
How long have you been playing it now?
I think I'm like 2 hours in, and I'm just finished Act 2. So I'm guessing it's probably about 3 hours or so, depending on how fast you solve the puzzles.
Okay.
None of the puzzles have been particularly difficult. There is some combat, but I don't think you can actually lose the game from it. I think you just get kind of rebuffed and said, try it again.
Do it over.
At least that's what happened to me. I don't know. So yeah. Oh, and Vincent says it's on Game Pass.
Oh, it is.
So
it's not. Wait, is it?
It's
PC
only PC.
Game Pass? Okay.
But yeah,
That's what I thought. I thought it was only PC. Yeah.
I bought it on Steam.
Yeah. $15. It's not bad.
$15 seemed fine to me.
Yeah.
Especially for what you get.
So if you're on Game Pass Ultimate, then you can get it for free.
Yeah. So so it's it is pretty. I wouldn't call it dystopian, but it is bleak.
Yeah.
There's a bleak reality to it, which is always, magical realism works best when it's kind of combined with that sort of starkness.
Yeah.
And this is a really good job of it. I think it is like reading someone's diary at times, because the guy who wrote it and designed most of it grew up in Norco, and he is sort of like, there's a bunch of stuff.
Someone in chat said that they were shocked that you knew what Norco was.
Well, I did some research here.
Yeah, but I don't know if like the person is from like Norco or from New Orleans or whatever, and they're familiar with it.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Right, Fire Native. I passed Norco on my way to New Orleans when I used to go to New Orleans. Yeah.
Yeah.
About 1 hour south of there.
I looked Norco up because I'm like, what is that? It's like, and because it is real. Like, obviously, I don't think they have talking alligators and magical ditch men who show you how to take a boat into a mall cult central thing so you can fight a duck. But
so Game Manual is saying it's also on console. I didn't see that when I looked online.
Console. I thought it was only on Steam.
I thought it was PC only, but
Or
maybe
only
we're wrong.
Yeah, only on.
I couldn't find it on any other stores.
I didn't see it on console. I got it on PC because
Yeah.
I looked it up and it said that's what it was.
Oh, he says he's wrong.
Okay.
Okay, it is PC only for now. But I bet you
He is right though. If you didn't like Kentucky Route Zero, don't touch this one. It's very much Kentucky Route Zero.
I haven't met too many people who did not like Kentucky Route Zero.
If you don't like Kentucky Route Zero, we're probably not going to get along.
Yep. Because it's really good, and people should like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you like Kentucky Route Zero and you liked Disco Elysium, I would say this is an absolute must play. Like
Okay.
you do not want to miss this if you like this stuff, or if you like David Lynch, if you like.
Yeah, that does seem right in the.
You should know by now what I'm dealing with, and you've seen the look of it.
Yeah,
like it looks gorgeous. Like,
yeah, it's really cool.
I don't automatically go for kind of the old style pixel art, and I've seen a couple of point and click adventure games that try to replicate the old sort of bad '90s, but a lot of that is real shaky, especially when you get into digitized stuff. But this is excellent. This is exactly what it should be.
Yeah, I'm gonna play it based upon what you just said about it. So there you go. Norco, Norco. If you're listening to the audio version of GameFace, we love to be able to turn you guys on to games that are under the radar. As we said when we started this topic, we don't even have a game page for this game on Sifted. So, and we'll fix that as well. We're gonna have to, because I need to tag it for this conversation.
I pulled that off a few times, I think.
What'd you say?
I pulled that off a few times.
Yeah, there's been a few games that you've brought to the show that had
Rebel Galaxy didn't have a page.
that was another one. Yep. So there you go. That's Norco. Let's move on. We're running out of time. So we're actually going to skip a topic that I did have in the rundown. And it was just basically talking about Tales from the Borderlands 2 is coming. And also talking about PAX. The PAX was back as a real convention with people in person. And that's a really good thing. And that's the perfect convention for people to come back to.
I know 5 people who got COVID from that.
They did.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Damn.
Of course.
Dude, on Good Morning Gaming last Friday or Thursday, I told everyone to go. I was like, if you can go, you need to go. Like, obviously, be safe. Take a mask if you want to wear a mask or whatever, but you should go. And I hope to God that nobody went and got COVID. I would feel freaking terrible. I hope that's not... I don't even like laughing about it. I would feel terrible. So anyway, we're skipping Tales from the Borderlands 2, but it was announced this week, and it is on the way, and it is coming for the end of the year. Next, we're going to talk about Quest 2 and MetaQuest and all this stuff that a lot of people, I think, hate, but I am really starting to come around on, Matt. This week there was a MetaQuest gaming showcase. Basically, a Nintendo Direct styled presentation for Oculus Quest 2. And correct me if you feel I'm wrong, but doesn't it feel like all along Oculus and Facebook have been doing things wrong? Like as far as how it's tried to interact with people like us to try to sell its gaming related products to people like us. Like, I always felt like it's marketing.
I don't feel like they've tried at all.
Right.
I don't know anything about Oculus News. I don't know what's out on that platform.
Well, that changed this week, Matt, because they did an outreach to people like us. They are now doing direct style presentations for Oculus Quest that are just basically a magazine style show, and they just have a host and they toss to one game after another with debuts and premieres. And of course, the whole thing is produced as if you were in Oculus Quest. So everything looks very green screeny and virtual. And in fact, at the end, like Zuckerberg walks in and he's like, hey, check out this one last thing, blah, blah, blah. They're basically following the template that has been laid down finally by the rest of the industry. And it feels to me like they've actually...
Zuckerbot is no Miyamoto.
Yeah. It does feel to me like finally, though, they have joined the industry. They're like, you know what? What have we been doing? Like, we know we know what works and how to reach these people. Why are we trying to do this other weird thing that they don't connect with?
Yeah, and you got to at least try to package it up and make it look interesting.
Yeah. And I have been on the hunt for Oculus Quest for a while now. I wanted one for Christmas. I didn't get it. And
are they hard to get?
They're not hard to get. Just nobody bought it for me. I think a lot of times with gaming stuff, like people are like, oh, Shane will get that for free, so I'm not going to buy it or whatever. But I have no connection at Oculus, so I have not been able to get anything free from Oculus. And so I don't have an Oculus Quest 2, but I am kind of interested in it. And I watched this, and now I'm really interested in it because it is starting to become a real platform, Matt, with like lots of new games coming, exciting products on the way, cool partnerships, games that I like already that are being completely rebuilt just for Oculus Quest, like Resident Evil 4. One of the things they announced in this was Resident Evil 4 Mercenaries is coming to Oculus Quest 2, which is something I am all about. But they did announce like 5 or 6 big games. This is one of them right here, NFL Pro Era, which I feel like does exactly what they should be doing with sports games in VR. Instead of trying to create, hey, here's this NFL simulation just like Madden, but in VR, they have instead said, no, we're going to simplify this, and you are just going to play as an NFL quarterback. You're going to sit in the pocket, and you're going to pass the ball using our awesome motion controllers out to your receivers. And This, to me, is like them finally figuring out like how to do sports in VR. Instead of trying to figure out how to make Madden work in VR, they're like, no, that's never going to work. And it is never going to work. So instead, they're like, let's just simplify it and just create almost like a mini game around being a quarterback in the NFL. And I am all about this. It sounds like fun. Another game that they debuted for the first time is Bone Lab, which is the sequel to Boneworks, a VR game that I have been championing for years and years as one of the best examples. It was one of the first games to really get like the finger tracking and everything right, as far as in the hand tracking. You could pick up a game or pick up a gun, pick up a clip, shove the clip into the gun. It was a boundary breaker for VR. And now this is a sequel to that they announced exclusively. And then the big finale, the just one more thing that they announced at the very end, was Ghostbusters VR. It feels like we're getting overloaded with Ghostbusters lately. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. This is like the second Ghostbusters game that's been announced.
They're leaning hard. They also announced a sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife yesterday.
Right. And then last week on GameFace, we talked about that asymmetrical multiplayer game.
Sony's really trying to find some IP that Marvel doesn't own.
Yeah,
for them to leverage.
Like they're leveraging the hell out of Ghostbusters.
Yeah, you can't say they're not giving it the old college try.
Yeah. So because here's yet another one. What I'm struggling with, Matt, is I need to exercise, and I had my knee surgery, and in all honesty, my knee is still not right. It's still kind of screwed up, and I don't know what my next steps are as far as dealing with the doctor, who I feel like screwed my knee up.
This looks really annoying.
It does look annoying, unfortunately, but. So I'm trying to figure out, like, how can I exercise, basically? And Quest 2 is a great way to exercise. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, should I buy a Quest 2 now so I can start getting in shape now? Or should I wait to see what happens with PlayStation VR 2? Because I don't want to spend $1,000 on VR.
Mm-hmm. I think Quest 2 is going to be more, because of the pick-up and play nature, is going to be more conducive to, like, a workout thing.
Because it's also wireless, right?
Yeah, because I think you're going to be, you don't need the tracker, and you don't need to hook it up to anything. I think you just need to pick it up, hold the controls, put it on, and you're done. I think if your focus is to have some kind of like physical activity, I think you're going to be a lot more likely to pick the Quest up and do it, rather than like, oh, I should do that, but I got to pull the PSVR out and plug it into the PS5, and there's too much barrier there. Like in terms of like if you want like more of probably a high res, high quality VR experience, maybe PSVR 2 is what that is. But if you want it as a fitness tool, I think Quest is the option.
Are you like me? Are you feeling the draw to get a Quest 2 at all? No.
In fact, I'm always a little surprised you bring it up.
Because I'm sick. Like, right. It makes me sick usually. But I tried it over Christmas. One of my buddies got one. Mm-hmm. His wife bought it for him. And I didn't get sick playing it. Now, I only played it for 8 minutes maybe. Mm-hmm. But I didn't get sick and I didn't feel queasy like I usually do. And so I have a feeling like maybe this is a quality enough where I'm not going to get ill using it. Mm-hmm. But really the big thing for me is just getting in shape. Like, I need to lose weight. And I can't think of a better way to do it than playing VR games.
Yeah, Beat Saber will do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You remember the head of PR for Telltale Games? He has done this. Like, he was large. And he just got VR and just started using VR. And now he's, like, skinny. Mm-hmm. And, like, it took him, like, 18 months, and he just lost literally, like, 160 pounds. Yeah, playing VR.
I mean, I would guess there's probably some dietary changes.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. To lose weight that fast, sure.
Activity is, even a little bit matters.
Makes a difference, yeah. So anyway, I've been eyeing up Quest 2, and right on cue, they have this MetaQuest gaming showcase where it really appears like finally they're taking it seriously and they're trying to appeal to people like us, and it's working. Like, I want a Quest 2. I'm curious if any of you guys in the chat have a Quest 2, and whether you think I should get it or not. Fire Native, a stationary bike is best for no impact. I had ACL reconstruction and a double meniscectomy. So I bought a bike. I got a bike for Christmas, and I have been riding that bike, but I finally took a really long ride like a week and a half ago, and my knee blew up. You saw I was limping in here last week. It literally knocked me back down for almost 2 weeks. So I don't know what's going on. Like, I had my meniscus repaired, and the guy did like this extra procedure that he literally told me about as he was wheeling me into the operating room. And then I got home and I researched it, and like every doctor is like, nobody does that anymore. So anyway, I don't know. I may need to talk to a lawyer about it. So I feel like I can use Quest to lose weight without my knee. And so that's why I'm really looking at it. And so I'm curious if any of you guys have a Quest and what you think, and maybe you should steer me away and say, Shane, it's not going to work for you. It would be awesome if any of you guys have any of that kind of feedback. That's what I'm looking for. Or people who are watching this archive of this show, maybe not even the people in the stream, and if you could put something in the comments of your experience with Quest 2, I would really appreciate it, because I am really teetering right on the edge of buying it at this point, and you guys would be a big help. And stuff like this presentation is encouraging to me as a potential buyer, because I can see there's a big plan ahead. There's a lot of games coming that look fun and look active.
How much is it?
$300 for the base model. And if you get the one that has like the bigger storage and stuff like that, then it goes up incrementally. So you can get in for $300, and even you can get brand new ones of the 300 on eBay for like $220, like $230. So anyway, I'm thinking about it. If any of you guys have experience, Danny Dern says sue for a Quest 2. It's pretty funny. Anyway, if any of you guys have experience with Quest 2, please leave a comment below, either on YouTube or at sifted.net or at patreon.com/sifted. It could be really, really helpful to me. And now on to our final topic of episode 298. I told you we had a ton of topics for this episode. We had to cut one to make it in under time. It was announced this week. Actually, it wasn't announced this week. It was uncovered this week, Matt, that there are emulators coming for Switch that play Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. It was leaked onto 4chan, which I have a fear that's what Twitter's going to become in the next 6 months, just another 4chan. That's a big fear for me. It seems like it might be headed that way, in which case I will leave Twitter. But anyway, the emulators for Game Boy for the Switch were leaked onto 4chan, and as it turns out, the digital fingerprints in the file were the same organization that built the other emulators for Nintendo, Nintendo of Europe's Nintendo European Research and Development Team, or NERD for short. It's a team in Paris. They built, what did they do? I have notes here. They built the emulators for the classic mini consoles, and it built the N64, GameCube, and Wii emulation, and Super Mario 3D All-Stars. So they found the fingerprints from the place that's been doing all the emulation for Nintendo. It appears to be a done deal. Now, Nintendo hasn't announced anything officially yet, but there was also a list of games that were leaked, of 39 different games that were already tested on these emulators and said to work well. Now, the 39 games run the gamut. It pretty much is kind of a greatest hits already of the GBA. So the vast majority of the games on that list were Game Boy Advance. There were 4 Game Boy Color games, and the rest were all GBA, which makes sense to me. How many Game Boy games do you want to go back and play, Matt? Any?
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3.
I would say Tetris.
Yeah.
But it's not even the best version of Tetris.
Right, yeah.
Kirby, the original Kirby.
Yeah.
Maybe Super Mario Land, just for the
nostalgia feels.
The historic significance,
But really,
I'd be like one of those I played this for 5. I played it until I died, and I'm done, kind of thing. Castlevania, original Castlevania Game Boy thing, and
yep.
I mean, it doesn't come into its own until the Game Boy Color, but really a Game Boy Advance. Game Boy Advance was just sort of having a second Super Nintendo.
Yeah. How do you feel about the Game Boy Advance coming to Nintendo Switch Online? Do you feel like it adds a lot of value to that subscription? Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I have all of those still. There's very little on the Game Boy Advance I'd want to play that I don't actually have and could play on a Game Boy Advance. And if I wanted to play them on a bigger screen, I can just put them on my emulator on my PC and not wait for Nintendo to drip feed them all to me. I just...
One thing I will say, too, is looking at that list of 39 games, I did realize that the GBA doesn't have as many great games as you think. If you really go back and go through the catalog, there's a lot of shovelware for the GBA.
Oh, yeah. But because of the size of the library, I think you could come up with 40 great games for the GBA.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff missing from this list. There were no mainline Pokemon games in the list. So they're
charge for that shit.
Yeah, all the other. The other thing too that they discovered is that every game is its own separate app. So it's not like you're going to go into an app where there are all the games in there to select from. Each one is its own living, breathing entity.
Oh, so you can sell those individually.
Exactly. That's what you prompted when you said, "Oh, you can just sell the Pokemon." Well, you're going to sell them all.
Yeah.
If you need to. At least that's the way it appears anyway. But yeah, there's 39 games, and there were only 2 Castlevanias, and what were there, 4 or 5 ultimately released for GBA?
There were 3 on the GBA.
Was there only 3?
Yeah, there was Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and the first one with
Aria of Sorrow? Or did you
Aria
say
of
that
Sorrow.
right?
Yeah,
Oh,
I always mix up Aria of Sorrow because the other one, Dawn of Sorrow, is because DS.
Yeah,
It was on the
right.
DS.
Yep.
That's right. There were 3 GBA ones and 3 DS ones.
Yeah. So there's still room for
And they
editions.
were just put out on the freaking the collection. So
right.
I don't know what.
Yeah. Which may be why Nintendo hasn't announced this stuff yet. I'm guessing it'll be a part of some direct.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope that the Metroid games are in there.
There were not. How many were there?
There's 0 in Fusion.
Yeah, there was only Fusion in the list.
They should really bring back Zero Mission.
Yeah. And they may. Again, this list isn't like the complete list or anything like that. It's just what they had tested so far in the documentation that they had uncovered in the leak. But personally, as someone who lived through the GBA era, and like you, I have a huge GBA game collection. It's just sitting collecting dust. I never use it. I don't even know where the Game Boy player is for my GameCube at this point. I know I have one, but I know
where it is. It's on the GameCube.
No, my GameCube's packed away in its box, and it doesn't fit in the GameCube box with the GameCube.
No, because it's what makes it a cube.
Right. Exactly. I saw someone on a YouTube video arguing the other day how they were pissed off that the GameCube isn't a cube, and I'm like, bro, get a Game Boy player, and that makes it a cube.
The mission.
Yeah, exactly. But personally, this doesn't add a lot of incentive for me to... No. I mean, I'm already a subscriber of Nintendo Online, and I pay for the extra expansion pack or whatever. So I'm not the person that this is for. It's for the people who are sitting on the fence.
Again, I'm not as interested in having sort of a built-in library subscription thing as I would be in terms of being able to do more of a Wii Virtual Console thing. I wouldn't mind having all the Zeldas kind of in one place. I wouldn't mind having both Metroids there. It's consolidating things on a system that is more accessible than the Wii U, basically. But I don't know, or the DS. Most of that stuff is already on the DS as well, sold individually. But and I already have actual physical copies of most of them too. It's just sort of repetitive at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see a lot of value in it. Do you think, but young kids will care?
Yeah, I mean,
do you think they want to play games like this?
If they want to play some of those crappy mobile things they shovel onto the eShop, I don't see why you wouldn't just throw them at Circle of the Moon and see how they do.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess from their perspective, though, this is, to us, these games are quote unquote handheld games, but to them, handheld games are Super Mario Odyssey and Splatoon.
Yeah, but they're also garbage.
Breath of the Wild, and
they're also garbage like those shovelware games. There's not a lot of distinction made. I've seen my nephew play stuff that varies from something as quality as Lego games to something as terrible as some kind of weird SpongeBob thing.
Where they just care about the character.
Yeah. Although getting him the Bikini Bottom remaster was a mistake because that game's very difficult. And
That's right. It's so bizarre that game is challenging. It shouldn't be.
No, I mean, there's a reason it became a speedrun darling, but
yeah,
it's so yeah, I think it would be fine for the most part. I think you're probably not going to notice a lot of distinction there. If you weren't around then, there's enough games that look like those games of that era in terms of a retro look that you may not realize they're old games.
Yeah. To me, I wonder if this adds really any value at all. Patrick always talks about how Nintendo has this gigantic catalog of games, and if it really wanted to do well on mobile, it would just put them all up and charge people $3 a month or whatever to subscribe to all Nintendo's games. I really question whether that actually would do all that well. I think it would do well out of the gate, but I also feel like in the first month you would see more cancellations than you can shake a stick at.
Maybe, I don't know. If Square can charge what they charge for their crappy remasters on mobile and stuff.
Yeah,
maybe that would work for that.
But do those do well? I don't know.
Do well enough that Square keeps making them.
They keep doing them. That's a good point. I don't know.
Did you see the Final Fantasy VI statue that was announced?
Yeah,
today?
it's insane.
The $1,400, $14,000
No, it's not 14,000. That was
14,000.
yen, wasn't it?
That's $14,000.
What?
Yeah.
They didn't put the price in the trailer that they put out for it.
It's like half the size of a man.
I saw it.
And
We put up a trailer for it. We curated a trailer for it. It's like this big, and it sits on the table. Yeah,
it's $14,000.
It is pretty amazing.
It's a lot of money for a red flag.
Oh, that's insane. $14,000. That's insane. I'm curious though, people in chat, what do you think about the GBA? People who maybe only subscribe to the $20 tier of Nintendo Switch Online, or you don't subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online at all because you don't play Switch games online or you don't own a Switch, would this put you over the tipping point where you're willing to spend the $50 per year for the Switch Online plus expansion pass? I mean, maybe I'm old. I played all these games already, so the interest is minimal for me, but for you it may be different. So let me know in the chat if you guys are like, no, Shane's crazy. Like, this motivates me now to subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online. But I don't know. Vincent says you're underestimating the value of legacy content. Am I? Okay, explain it to me. Just don't say that. Explain why I am. Like, that doesn't do anyone any good to say that.
I mean, they make, clearly there's some market there because people keep making these collections. Konami goes out of their way to make these Castlevania things. Sonic's getting that collection again, although there's a whole bunch of other problems with what there's like fucking pre-order and like deluxe version bonuses to get animated characters on them. Very weird.
Well, I'm not saying there's no value in them, but those collections never appear in the top 20 sales for a month.
No, but they also don't cost anything, Barry.
Right. It's an easy cash grab. But when you're talking about, hey, this is a subscription that I'm going to be paying every month, I question whether there's value in a lot of this stuff.
I have to think that that's one of the main reasons people are still subscribing to Nintendo Online. Like, I don't think there's a lot of online play going on there unless you're into Splatoon. It's not much, or Smash Brothers, I guess. But, like, I have to think that the majority of people who have Nintendo Switch Online have it because of that retro service.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, N64 in past, I get. Stuff before N64, though.
Well, and GBA is sort of...
Super Nintendo...
Super Nintendo's fine. GBA is just kind of an extra bell and whistle on it, I think. I mean, it's certainly something I wouldn't try to raise the price of it for, or add another, pay an extra $5 for the GBA stuff. But, maybe they're doing them separately as individual purchases. Who knows? The way they seem to be set up. Who knows? It may be a nice extra thing to get for the money you're spending, but at the same time, I did not go in for the extra money for the N64 games. So.
Right, that wasn't enough for you.
No, so...
Do you subscribe to Switch Online at all?
Yeah.
Oh, you do, even though you never use it.
I have the baseline. I have play the Super Nintendo games once in a while.
Oh, but you never play games online, right?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't really much to play.
No. Mario Kart, Smash, Splatoon...
Maybe one day something will come along and I want, but it's not. It's what is it, $20 a year? Mm-hmm. That's good enough for some weird Super Nintendo games here and there.
Yeah. All right, let's head to chat and see what you guys are saying about it. Maybe it does motivate some.
I actually like the things they do where sometimes they put up like an SP version where you have to like play it in a certain part of the game with a challenge added. Like that's cool. I like those. But there are periods where it's just like the last like 10 games they add to that service are like I've never heard of any of them, and like I was a teenager when that system was out. I should know every single game you put up, and you're still finding weird shit that I've never heard of or played or want to play. So,
most people are saying no. Justin Horman, I love the GBA for Aria of Sorrow and the Final Fantasy remakes. I already have those games and a backlit modded GBA, so I don't need a subscription. Some people are saying the games that they want will never appear, which if you're talking about Super Robot Tyson, you're probably right.
Yeah. I have those.
Too Quick Capri.
You're probably never going to get Ninja 5.0.
No, I have an EverDrive and a GameCube GBA player. Yeah. Erebus Jones, dear God, no. There's no value in it. I have one of those.
I forgot I had that. I do have an EverDrive.
And this is what a lot of people are saying. It's too easy to emulate. So
what do I have?
A lot of people are like, I'd rather just use an emulator to play the games.
I have that little, what is that? SP something.
I don't know.
The analog pocket. That's what I have.
Oh, I vaguely remember that.
You can just plug the cartridges directly into it, and it plays Game Gear too. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I got it.
Sneaky says I can play those ROMs on my phone or anything, and it'd play better than Switch.
Yep.
Veritas legacy games are supplemental content, not system service sellers.
It's just an extra thing to have.
And this is for video games. I bought an analog pocket, so I'm good. Yeah.
And Analog Pocket, you can play the physical cartridges, or you can just do ROMs on them. Like it's better than any Game Boy ever was.
Yeah. So it looks like most people agree with me. It's not going to motivate them to give Nintendo more money on a subscription basis.
It's definitely a value add if they just add it to the thing, but in terms of like trying to get up the subscription cost, you're out of your mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a why not thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm glad it's there, but
might be just enough in conjunction with the other stuff to get someone who's on the fence to jump in. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's just there's nothing wrong with doing it, but it's just like, okay, cool. I've played those 14 times.
Okay, we have time for 2 questions in Q&A because we're already well over time. I knew today was going to be a challenge because I had not hosted a show with this many topics in a long time, and I talked way too long about Horizon Forbidden West. From Grimshaw Rocks, Elden Ring is obtuse and confusing. Can you think of other games that fit that description but are good games?
A lot of strategy games. What was strategy game PC years and years ago, like mid 2000s, like after we moved to not too long after we moved to LA, maybe around the time you went to Game Trailers. It was like a strategy game with like where you play like it was like little like really primitive graphics, but it was like people were obsessed with it. It was like,
what were the graphics like?
They were like almost T figures, little like sprite figures of humans you had to put down and stuff. And I can't remember what it was called.
I do not remember.
It was
that game.
It
was a thing though.
Yeah, it was. I think I want to say it began with a T. It wasn't Terraria, but it was something like that. Darwinia, that's what it was. Yes, Erebus Jones got it.
I don't remember that game at all.
Darwinia. It was just. Oh my God, you couldn't figure that game out. It was so obtuse, but like people would play it in the game lab all night. Like people loved it. So yeah. Dwarf Fortress, that's another good one. That wasn't what I was thinking of, but yeah, Dwarf Fortress is another good one. But Darwinia was it.
There aren't many. That's kind of what makes From's games unique.
I played a few of them. Like certainly they weren't presentationally as good as I would say. What was it? It was another PC game, strategy game, multiplayer game, turn-based, like 4X sort of thing. And like you could play as like the Cthulhu side or like elves or you play almost any. There was like all these different races, and and it was incredibly convoluted and obtuse, and you had to like study how to play things and what the icons meant. I can't remember we used to play it on this forum I was on all the time called Quarter to Three, and it was.
I mean, I would argue a lot of arcade games back in the day were like that. You like the instructions, they would just have a little panel on the arcade cabinet. They would have like 4 bullet points, and that was almost never enough. Like, for example, Super Punch-Out in the arcade, it took me forever to figure out how to duck. Because, so for the first time, like, you could actually just duck instead of like the first Punch-Out. And the arcade cabinet had like a little drawing of an analog stick, and it had arrows pointing towards the analog stick. And I would look at it, and I'm like, what does that mean? And I could never figure out what it meant. And so the first like 10 times I played Super Punch-Out in the arcade, I couldn't beat the first guy because it was Canadian Bear Hugger, and he would do the bear hug, and every time he did it, you just immediately completely lost all your health. And you had to duck to avoid their bear hug. And as it turns out, and I figured this out when an older person came in and played it in front of me, you grabbed the analog stick and pulled it out of the cabinet to duck. And I never would have figured that out on my own based upon the instructions on the arcade cabinet. Some teenager came in and did it, and I was like, oh my God. And after that, like, I became addicted to that arcade game. But yeah, a lot of arcade games back in the day, figuring out how to do some stuff was really hard because they just didn't include a lot of instructions on the cabinets in general. Vincent says we now have a Norco page. Thank you, Vincent, for creating the page, man. I'll be tagging GameFace to that later on tomorrow. Anyone else have a question? We'll answer one more if you guys got one. Cody S. Carter, thank you for Twitch Prime. Zet Saber said Dwarf Fortress as well. And Windaria was another one. And J.M. Ray must have done something nice again because everyone's thanking him. But I don't.
Dominion. That's what that was called. That game was called Dominion.
J.M. Ray gifted some tier 1 subs. Thank you, brother. As always, you come in and give out the goods to our fine people in chat. Oh, here's one. Here's a question. Ashes in the Hourglass. Thinking about Sony's output for the next year, there isn't any big first-party game announced for early 2023. which is a time slot they like to utilize every year for a big game. That is true. Do you think Sony might delay God of War, even if it's done, just have a presence in the first months of 2023?
No. That's not going to counteract the bonus you get from being around on Black Friday for sales.
Yeah, I think that game's too big to allow something like that to affect its release date. Yeah. However, I think there will be some other game that pops up between now and then that will also be a big game. It may not be quite as big as God of War, but I think there will be a game in that window. It probably won't be God of War, and I hope it's not. But I think there will be a big game, a big first-party exclusive game from PlayStation for that slot. I don't know what it is yet, but I think we will know probably in the next couple months. But I think there will be a big game from PlayStation in that time frame that you mentioned. It just because you're right. PlayStation always has something big for that time of year. So I think that's it. I think that's all the time we have. Actually, we don't even have time for this. We're way over time. But Matt, thank you. Another great show. If you're listening to this show on any of the podcast services out there, and GameFace is 4 days delayed on all of them, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, all of them. The show is also 4 days delayed on YouTube. If you're watching the show there or you're listening on any of the podcast services, please go to patreon.com/sifted and give us a pledge. We get our podcast statistics, and there are so many people listening to this show, and week after week, I ask you guys to please help us out, and none of you do. So please, if you've been listening to this show for years, and a lot of you have, we have the statistics that prove this, go drop us a pledge. Even if it's just $1, just to say thanks for 3 hours of entertainment we give you every week. Like, we really appreciate it. We really need the help. I would not be asking like this if we did not need it. We're really getting down to it here. We need the help. So anything that you can do would be a huge help. $1 would be awesome, but $4 to get all our content early, that would be even better. We'd really appreciate it. Again, that's patreon.com/sifted. If you can't afford to do that, you can always help us with Twitch Prime. If you're watching on YouTube, just head down below. How to do that is in the description. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt to hook it up the first time. After that is 2 clicks to renew every month, and you do have to renew it every month, which we know sucks, but there's nothing we can do about it other than complain to Twitch, which I do all the time. I keep asking for a recurring feature on that. I doubt I'll ever get it, but I'll keep asking. But anyway, that's it. We'll be back next week. We'll be here again at twitch.tv/siftedgames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern next Tuesday. There will be games in next week's show. Believe it or not, finally, which is great. Like new games that you guys are excited about. I know at the very least we'll have Nintendo Switch Sports in next week's episode, which is something I'm actually pretty excited about. See if I can rekindle that fire for Wii Sports, which a lot of us had back in the early aughts. So anyway, we'll see you guys next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.